The glossy conference room at YouTube's San Bruno campus buzzed with excitement. Executive assistants rushed around with tablets, lawyers reviewed final documents, and PR teams prepared statements. At the center of it all, I sat quietly, watching Jackson Reynolds, my former best friend and business partner, fidget with his expensive watch. Just a few more signatures, the YouTube acquisitions director said cheerfully, and BuzzView Network will officially be part of the YouTube family. Jackson forced a smile, but the strain showed. His once successful network of entertainment channels was hemorrhaging viewers, advertiser confidence had collapsed, and his investors were demanding an exit strategy. This acquisition was his salvation, not the triumphant billion-dollar deal he'd once bragged about at industry events, but a face-saving measure that would at least keep his investors from total loss. "Alex," he said, turning to me with practiced charm, "I still don't understand why you're here. This is between BuzzView and YouTube." I smiled, sliding the final contract across the table. "Actually, Jackson, YouTube isn't acquiring BuzzView. I am, through my company, Viral Core Technologies." The blood drained from his face as he read the paperwork, recognition dawning slowly. This is impossible. Viral Core is worth billions. You own it," I finished for him. "All of it." 3 years earlier, I had been a struggling content creator with a passionate following but constant battles against YouTube's mysterious algorithm. My educational channel exploring scientific concepts through eye-catching experiments had quality content but remained stubbornly underpromoted. Meanwhile, clickbait and controversy seemed to thrive. Jackson, my roommate from college and co-creator of our channel, had grown impatient. "This isn't working, Alex," he had declared one rainy evening in our shared apartment that doubled as a studio. "We've been at this for 2 years and barely have 100,000 subscribers. The content is good," I insisted. "The algorithm just doesn't understand what we're creating. It's designed for different metrics." "Then let's give it what it wants," Jackson argued. "More drama, more clickbait, more controversy. That's what gets views." But I couldn't sacrifice quality for clicks. Instead, I began studying the algorithm itself, how it processed data, recognized patterns, and made recommendations. Late nights of coding turned into months of research as I built a model that could not only predict how the algorithm would respond to content but optimize videos to work with it rather than against it. Jackson saw only the declining ad revenue and my distraction from producing videos. "This is insane," he had shouted during our final argument. "You're wasting time on some theoretical project while our channel dies." The next day, he locked me out of our channel, rebranded it as the first property in his new BuzzView network, and brought in investors to expand. His parting text message was simple: "Taking the channel in a more profitable direction. Your share of equipment is in storage. Good luck." Within months, BuzzView grew into a network of entertainment channels that initially thrived by chasing trends and controversy. Meanwhile, I refined my algorithm predictor into something more powerful, an entirely new recommendation engine that understood quality, context, and viewer satisfaction beyond simple engagement metrics. When I presented my technology at a small developer conference, I expected moderate interest. Instead, I found myself surrounded by tech executives by day's end. 3 months later, Viral Core Technologies launched with $50 million in venture funding. A year after that, we were powering recommendation systems for 3 major streaming platforms. "The documentation is all there," I told Jackson now, bringing myself back to the present moment. "Viral Core is acquiring BuzzView Network as a case study for our algorithm optimization services." "You planned this," he accused, hands shaking slightly. "You've been waiting for us to fail." "No," I corrected calmly. "I've been building something that works while you've been chasing shortcuts. Your failure was your own." The YouTube executives watched our exchange with poorly disguised fascination. Most knew pieces of the story. The industry had buzzed with rumors about the mysterious founder of Viral Core and my history with Jackson. "Mr. Reynolds," the acquisition director interjected gently, "perhaps we should focus on completing the transaction. Your investors are expecting closure today." Jackson signed the papers with a barely suppressed fury. As he stood to leave, he leaned close to me. "You think this makes us even? You have no idea how to run a content network. Me too," I replied. "That's not why I bought BuzzView." After Jackson stormed out, the YouTube chief product officer turned to me. "I assume this acquisition is related to our larger discussion." I nodded. "BuzzView will be our demonstration case. We'll apply the Viral Core algorithm to its channels and show exactly how content quality can be optimized without sacrificing creator integrity, and the implementation across our main platform. Phase 1 can begin next month, as discussed. The full integration will take approximately 1 year." As we finished the meeting, my phone buzzed with a notification. My personal YouTube channel, the one I had started from scratch after being locked out by Jackson, had just crossed 5 million subscribers. The latest video, explaining how recommendation algorithms shape online culture, was trending worldwide. Outside in the California sunshine, I took a moment to absorb what had just happened. When Jackson had stolen our channel and rebranded it as BuzzView, it had felt like the end of everything I'd worked for. Now I understood it had merely been the beginning. 6 months later, I stood on stage at VidCon, the world's largest convention for online video creators. Thousands of content creators, from teenagers with dreams to established stars with millions of followers, filled the auditorium. "The algorithm isn't your enemy," I explained, displaying visualizations of recommendation patterns behind me. "But it's also not designed to recognize true quality without help. That's what ViralCore's integration with YouTube is changing." The audience leaned forward, hungry for insights. Many had experienced the same frustrations I had, creating content they believed in, only to see it buried while more sensationalistic videos thrived. 3 key principles drive our approach, I continued. First, context matters, not just keywords and click rates, but the actual substance of what you're creating. Second, viewer satisfaction over time outweighs momentary engagement. And third, creator consistency builds algorithm trust. In the front row, I spotted McKeenan Johnson, a science communicator whose thoughtful videos had struggled for visibility until recently. Under the new algorithm implementation, her channel had grown from 200,000 to 3 million subscribers in 4 months. Beside her sat Deshaun Williams, whose educational content about financial literacy now reached the audiences who needed it most, rather than being sidelined for flashier get-rich-quick content. "The first phase of implementation has already shown results," I said, displaying a graph. Educational content discoverability up 78%. Creator satisfaction with recommendation accuracy improved by 62%. And most importantly, viewer long-term engagement, people finding channels they continue to watch and value month after month, has increased by 43%. What I didn't mention explicitly was how dramatically BuzzView's channels had transformed under the new system. Rather than chasing daily trends, we had refocused them on quality content with substance. Initially, viewership had dropped, terrifying Jackson's former investors, but within 3 months, a more dedicated audience had emerged, one that actually watched full videos rather than clicking and leaving. After my presentation, as I navigated through crowds of creators eager to talk, a familiar face appeared, Thasha, my first subscriber from years ago, when Jackson and I had started our original channel. "I knew you'd figure it out," she said, giving me a quick hug. "Jackson never understood what made your videos special. It wasn't the flashy experiments, it was the integrity behind them." "Thanks for sticking with me," I replied, genuinely moved. Those early subscribers kept me going, especially after the restart. "Speaking of Jackson," she said hesitantly, "have you seen his new project?" I hadn't. After the acquisition, Jackson had received his payout and disappeared from the industry conversation. What's he up to? He's trying to start a competitor to YouTube, calling it Uncensored Stream or something. Claims it will prioritize creators over algorithms. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. Good luck competing with the platform now powered by ViralCore. Later that evening, I hosted a dinner for 20 creators whose work particularly exemplified what we were trying to achieve with the new recommendation system. As we enjoyed the meal, conversation flowed about their creative processes, the challenges they'd overcome, and their visions for the future. "Before ViralCore," said Lewis, a history educator with elaborate production values, "I was ready to quit. Putting 40 hours into a video that got buried immediately just wasn't sustainable. My content on women's health kept getting flagged inappropriately," added Dr. Patel, a medical educator. "Now it's actually reaching young women who need accurate information." Looking around the table, I felt a deep satisfaction that transcended the business success of Viral Core. These were the voices that deserved amplification, thoughtful, responsible creators making content that actually improved viewers' lives. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Realstream acquires Jackson Reynolds' struggling startup for undisclosed sum. Realstream was known for buying failed video platforms at bargain prices, usually for their user data rather than their technology. I set my phone aside without sharing the news. Jackson's story wasn't relevant to our celebration tonight. 1 year after the YouTube integration began, I returned to the small apartment where Jackson and I had started our original channel. I had kept it, even through Viral Core's success and my ability to afford much more luxurious accommodations. Something about the worn furniture and makeshift lighting setup kept me grounded. The living room wall still had pencil marks where we'd mapped out our first content calendar. The kitchen table, now valuable antique wood but then just a cheap secondhand find, still bore coffee stains from our late-night planning sessions. I set up my camera in the familiar corner and began recording. 5 years ago, I started making videos in this exact spot, believing that quality educational content deserved an audience. When that dream was taken from me, I didn't give up. I aimed higher. Today, I want to talk about resilience, algorithms, and the future of creator culture. The video wasn't for Viral Core marketing or a tech presentation. It was simply me returning to my roots as a creator, sharing what I'd learned along my journey. 3 hours after posting, it hit 1 million views. By morning, it had reached 5 million and was trending globally. The algorithm I had helped build was doing exactly what it was designed to do, recognizing substance and connecting it with the viewers who would value it most. Among the thousands of comments, one caught my attention from a new account named JR_NewStart. You were right about quality over shortcuts. Some of us learned the hard way. I never confirmed if it was actually Jackson, but I like to think he'd finally understood what I had been trying to explain years ago in our shared apartment. True success comes not from gaming systems, but from creating genuine value. 2 years after the full implementation of Viral Core's algorithm across YouTube, the online video landscape had transformed. Educational content flourished alongside entertainment. Creator burnout decreased as the pressure for daily uploads to stay relevant diminished. Viewers reported higher satisfaction with their recommended content. At Viral Core's headquarters, a converted warehouse with nods to creator culture throughout its design, I hosted a group of computer science students for our new internship program. The algorithm you'll be working with isn't perfect, I told them as we toured the development floor. We're constantly refining it, learning from creator and viewer feedback. That's the key lesson I hope you'll take from your time here. Technology should serve human creativity, not restrict it. A young woman raised her hand, excitement evident in her expression. Is it true that you built the first version of the algorithm just to prove your former partner wrong? I smiled, remembering those nights of coding fueled by determination after losing my channel. Not exactly. I built it because I believed in something he couldn't see, that quality deserves visibility, that algorithms can recognize value beyond clickbait, and that viewers are smarter than most platforms give them credit for. As the tour continued, my phone lit up with a calendar notification. Original channel anniversary, 8 years. Despite everything that had happened, losing the channel, building Viral Core, transforming the industry, I still marked the date when Jackson and I had uploaded our first video together. That evening, I recorded a simple video at my desk. No special effects, no elaborate setup, just honest reflection. 8 years ago today, I uploaded my first YouTube video, believing that sharing knowledge could change lives. I had no idea how true that would be, though not in the way I expected. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you were meant to create. I uploaded it without overthinking the title or thumbnail, trusting the system I had helped build to connect it with the right viewers. Within hours, creators around the world began responding with their own stories of setbacks that led to unexpected opportunities. The video became more than content. It became a conversation about resilience, purpose, and the true definition of success. And somewhere in that global discussion was the answer to the question that had driven me since Jackson locked me out of our channel. What if the algorithm actually valued what matters? The next morning, a package arrived at my office. Inside was an old external hard drive and a note. You should have these, the original files from our channel. Maybe they'll mean something to you. Jay. I plugged it in, finding all our early videos, planning documents, and behind-the-scenes footage, digital artifacts from the beginning of a journey neither of us could have predicted. I didn't reach out to Jackson, some chapters close for a reason, but I did extract clips from our very first video and incorporated them into Viral Course Company history presentation, acknowledging that even difficult beginnings can be part of important stories. Sometimes the most engaging content isn't about perfect endings, but about the messy, complicated process of creation itself, algorithms and humans alike, learning as they go.
As a housewife, you should follow my instructions. For now, I don't like renting, so go contract a new house for us. I'm counting on you. I'm going to enjoy gambling with the money I've got. You always act so high and mighty. My name is Jenny. I live with my husband, Kevin, and I'm dedicated to housework as a housewife. We don't have children, and many people envy my life as a housewife. But in reality, I spend a lot of time and effort on many things. One big reason is that Kevin's mother has been hospitalized for a long time at a local hospital, and I help take care of her. My mother-in-law is lonely and relies on me for trivial things. For example, the day after visiting her, she requested, "Hey, this pajama feels a bit uncomfortable. Buy me a new one next time." Her requests often create a lot of additional work for me. Moreover, she comes up with various reasons to ask for things. I suddenly want some sweets. If I don't eat them today, I might feel sick. Be sure to buy them. Such specific demands are not uncommon. These demands might not seem significant, but without daily visits, she feels a deep loneliness. Since I realized this, I've started visiting the hospital daily. It's less mentally taxing for me to visit voluntarily than to rush there when called. In fact, I never hear anything unpleasant at the hospital. My mother-in-law is just lonely and actually a very kind person. That's why I actively do what I can for her and enjoy my daily visits to the hospital as one of my pleasures. One evening during dinner, Kevin suddenly said to me, "The movers are coming next month, so make sure you pack properly." I was shocked by this unexpected statement. I immediately responded, "Movers? Packing? What do you mean? Is someone moving, or do I have to help with something?" Kevin replied with a wry smile, "No, that's not it. You're really oblivious, aren't you?" Unable to grasp his true intentions, I was confused and asked him more. Without hesitation and with a cruel smile, he revealed an unbelievable fact. "I sold this house. It was in your name, but it was easy to handle as your husband. I forged the power of attorney well, and it was sold smoothly," he declared. I was completely shaken and exclaimed, "What, you sold it? This house? Why?" Kevin explained calmly, "Because I needed money. I needed funds for my mother's care." Do you think there's any other reason to sell the house? You're really oblivious. Moreover, Kevin revealed that his company was struggling due to the impact of the coronavirus and was on the brink of bankruptcy. As a result, the company was forced to downsize, and he had been laid off a few months ago. However, he had kept this fact from me out of male pride. That's why he had been killing time gambling. Male pride. I can't believe you didn't tell me you got laid off and went gambling instead of reapplying for a job. There's no problem, right? I've been earning for the family all this time. Allow me some free time too. When I blamed him, Kevin got agitated and quickly explained the reason he sold the house. Actually, I was aiming for a big win at the casino, but I couldn't win. There's no severance pay, so I have no funds. That's when I thought selling the house would make money. But why would you sell my house without asking? Sigh. Don't act so high and mighty. You're just a housewife. Kevin blamed me for not working. In reality, I'm busy with my mother-in-law's care and can't work. But before the care, I worked properly and saved money. This house was also bought with those savings and support from my parents. Moreover, It was Kevin who asked me to quit my job and take care of his mother. He seems to have completely forgotten the time when he apologized to me shyly. Please. My mother is important, but due to long-standing disagreements, we both accumulate stress. That's why I want to entrust her care to you, Jenny. It was because Kevin told me that I quit my job, which I loved, and bought a house near his former workplace and the hospital where his mother is hospitalized. Anyway, what's sold is gone. Kevin said this and began preparing to leave. As a housewife, you should follow my instructions. For now, I don't like renting, so go contract a new house for us. I'm counting on you. I'm going to enjoy gambling with the money I've got. You always act so high and mighty. Ignoring my anger, Kevin left the house in high spirits in the middle of our conversation. I rushed to Kevin's room to look for the contract. It was hard to believe, but there was definitely a real estate sales contract there. Kevin probably needed cash immediately. He had sold the house at a price far below the market value. Moreover, I discovered an even more surprising fact. However, just standing there dumbfounded wouldn't start anything. The fact that Kevin had sold the house remained unchanged. If I didn't take action, I would really end up losing the house. With that realization, I started packing as Kevin had instructed. But I wasn't just following his instructions. Gradually, I was also advancing a plan for revenge. About 2 weeks later, Kevin called in a panic. "Hey Jenny, where are you right now?" I deliberately responded slowly to the phone. "Is there a problem? Why are you in such a hurry? Don't talk so slowly. Why is only my stuff left in the house? It's strange that all the appliances and furniture are gone. Also, I got a call from the hospital on my smartphone. I wonder why. It's the end of the month, and the hospital bills for my mother are unpaid. Pay them quickly, and explain what's going on with the house. I won't forgive you. Give me our new house's address." Kevin was still being intimidating under these circumstances, but I couldn't just stay silent. I clearly and deliberately told Kevin the following: "Our new house's address? What are you talking about? Shouldn't you be living with Mia?" "What? How do you know about Mia? Why should I have to pay the hospital fees? I shouldn't have to bear the medical costs for someone else's mother. Stop calling me to ask such obvious things. I'm busy unpacking at my new place. The new house costs $1 million. So I'm taking a lot of care to make sure it remains spotless, even as I unpack my things." "What? $1 million? How did you prepare such money? And my mother isn't someone else's mother. My mother is your mother too. What are you saying about Mia?" Despite my calm explanation, Kevin seemed to struggle to understand. But I had no intention of explaining things to him kindly. Talking to you is a waste of time. If you really want to know, come to the address I will tell you in a week. Listen carefully and take notes, okay? Wait a minute. I could hear Kevin searching for something on the other end of the phone. I waited for him to quiet down, then gave him the address of the law office. A week later, Kevin appeared at the lawyer's office, clearly in a bad mood. "Hey Jenny, why are you so condescending? It's not acceptable for you, a housewife, to act so high and mighty." Kevin was glaring at me with anger seeping through. However, the moment he saw the two women in the room, his expression suddenly changed. "What, Mom? And Mia too? Why are both of you here?" "Why? Because you behave irresponsibly. You sold Jenny's house without permission, and on top of that, you cheated on her. Unbelievable. I didn't raise you to be like this." "Wait a minute, Kevin, what's this about? Did you tell them about us? If I end up having to pay compensation, you'll take responsibility, right?" Kevin's words caused his mother and Mia to confront him. At that moment, feeling the tension in the room, Thompson, the lawyer, began to speak calmly. "Thank you all for gathering here. My name is Thompson, and I am Jenny's lawyer. I will now provide an explanation, so please bear with me." The room fell silent at Thompson's words. He began to speak in a calm tone about the shocking discovery I made in Kevin's room 3 weeks ago. The first thing I found was the contract for the sale of the house that Kevin had sold using a forged power of attorney. I had never imagined that he would go so far as to sell our house. And that was not all that was discovered. There were numerous photos of Kevin dating an unknown woman. There were also photos of them traveling together, appearing close like a couple. In other words, Kevin had quit his job without telling me, and not only was he gambling at the casino, but he was also having an affair. Upon learning this, I immediately hired a detective to investigate the woman's background. The detective's report revealed that the woman's name was Mia, and she knew Kevin was married yet continued the relationship. And that is why I intend to divorce Kevin. Since you cheated, you have no right to object. Naturally, I will also demand compensation for infidelity from Kevin and Mia. As I spoke calmly, Kevin could not hide his dismay. "Wait, divorce? Why are we talking about this? Mia was just a fling." At Kevin's self-centered remark, Mia was shocked. "Wait, what do you mean by just a fling? You told me you had lost feelings for your wife and that we would marry after the divorce without getting caught. Now that it's all out and there's a demand for compensation, the story is completely different. I never seriously thought about such a thing. There's no way I'd marry someone like you." "What?" The two began an embarrassing argument without regard for those around, but I had no time to engage in such foolish drama. Thompson intervened to stop them and continued the discussion. "The compensation Kevin is supposed to pay is not just for the affair." "What? What do you mean?" "You have been using money selfishly. Jenny has been paying all the living expenses, and she has also been doing the housework and caregiving. Furthermore, she has even been bearing the medical expenses for Kevin's mother. We will also add this to the claim for compensation." As Thompson explained calmly, Kevin was astonished and retorted, "What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. I was indeed gambling, but I was working properly until recently. There's no way Jenny, who is a housewife, could pay for living and medical expenses." Kevin said this as he looked down on me. I took over the conversation and began to explain. "Indeed, I am a housewife at home. However, I'm not dependent on you financially. Kevin, I have rental income from a condo my father left me. I used that income to buy our house and cover daily expenses and medical costs for Kevin's mother. Didn't I tell you this when we got married? Don't you remember?" "Well, I might have heard that story. I completely forgot." Kevin mumbled in astonishment. However, I did not intend to give him a chance to recover. I continued the conversation. "In short, you left everything related to the house and living expenses up to me. As compensation, you'll have to pay everything properly, and once we're divorced, I won't bear the medical costs for your mother. You'll have to manage it yourself." "What? You think you have the right to say such cold things?" "Kevin, stop. Don't you realize how disgraceful you are right now?" "But Mom." "No buts. Just do as Jenny says. What a disgraceful son you are." Kevin lashed out at me, and his mother scolded him. Mia also expressed her dissatisfaction with Kevin's actions. The office was in chaos, but Thompson remained impressively calm. He expertly settled the situation and organized everything. Ultimately, it's impossible for Kevin to prevent the divorce. Moreover, both Kevin and Mia cannot escape paying compensation to Jenny. You could hire a lawyer to try to reduce the amount, but I wouldn't recommend it. And Kevin, it's only natural that you should bear your mother's hospital expenses from now on. No one could argue Thompson's firm words. Filled with resentment, Kevin stared at me as he signed the divorce papers and the contract regarding the compensation payment. Mia, expressing her dissatisfaction, signed the contract as well, and the two left the room. Jenny, I'm truly sorry about Kevin. I will make sure the compensation is paid properly. No, Mother, there's no need for you to apologize. Please take care of yourself. At the end of our conversation, my mother-in-law apologized and left the room. With this incident, I managed to clear a major crisis in my life. Since then, I have been living peacefully in the mansion worth $1 million that my father left me. This house was originally one of the properties my father owned, and the rent is not very high. Since the security is very good, I have no worries even though it's a detached house. Even if Kevin discovers this place, I have no concerns. On the other hand, his situation after our divorce seems to be extremely difficult. It appears that Kevin has run out of savings due to the compensation he has to pay me, as Mia doesn't have a job. They did end up getting married after that. However, such circumstances cannot possibly make them happy. Kevin's act of selling the house on his own is clearly illegal. I would never allow that. Jenny, what the hell is going on? The police are at my house right now. Why am I being arrested? That's because you have committed fraud, right? I haven't done anything wrong. What's the problem with a husband selling his wife's property? I'm more important than you, so it's my rightful authority, right? The police don't understand anything, Jenny. Explain to them. Hurry up or I will really be arrested. You don't want that to happen, do you? When the police visited Kevin's home, he panicked and contacted me. However, why do I need to sympathize with him? I believe he should be arrested, so I went to consult with the police along with Thompson. I'm not familiar with the law at all, so I don't know what crimes Kevin could be charged with. It might be imprisonment or a fine, but his future will certainly be restricted. Hey, Jenny, help me. Didn't you love me? You might not have feelings anymore, but have mercy on me. You brought this upon yourself, right? As I've said before, don't contact me over trivial matters. We are no longer related, and I am busy. Why would you say such a terrible thing? Kevin was whining on the other end of the phone, but it was his own doing. I have no intention of helping him. Instead, I am currently focusing on finding a new job. While the income from what my father left is secure, I also want to engage with society. Now that I no longer need to take care of my mother-in-law, I have more free time. For now, I am considering returning to the industry I previously worked in. And once my job stabilizes, I think it would be nice to get a pet. I want to enjoy my life from now on in this way.
Why are you even in this house? You're like a parasite, living off of us here. What are you doing? No sooner had I spoken than my mother-in-law threw my belongings out of the window. I protested her insane actions. What did you say? Don't you dare talk back to me. Can you pick my stuff up, please? My mother-in-law put a knife to my throat. I was so scared that I couldn't move and just stood there. Get out, or this won't just be a game anymore. I understand. If that's the case, I'll leave immediately. My mother-in-law had been tormenting me since we started living together, but she doesn't know that I am the one supporting this house. The fear I felt earlier vanished. In my heart, I thought, if you've got what it takes, then prove it. I'll give you a week. I expect you to be out of here by then. Thank you. I showed respect to my mother-in-law, but I couldn't suppress my laughter. I quickly put on a straight face, hoping that she didn't notice. This will bring peace back to our home. I'm so happy. Yes, indeed. How ignorant my mother-in-law is. She doesn't realize that far from peace, my departure will bring her trouble. Leaving my mother-in-law in the family home, I moved to a high-rise apartment. Eventually, she will learn the truth, but it will be too late by then. I am Valerie Reynolds. Applying my past work experience, I now work from home. It's been 5 years since I married Justin. I was supposed to be living a peaceful and happy life. Are you okay? Are you really all right? I'm sorry. I never expected this to happen. I'm just thankful you're alive. But with this, things might become even more difficult for you. Don't worry about me. I cried in the hospital room, not caring who saw me, grateful that my husband was alive. That's because he had been involved in an accident at his construction site and lost most of the use of his dominant arm. When I had first heard the news, my mind went blank. Oh, mother, are you okay? Justin, my mother-in-law arrived and rushed to my husband's side, pushing me aside. It seemed that she didn't even notice me. We don't exactly have a bad relationship, but sometimes she prioritizes my husband over everything else. This time was no exception. Oh, Valerie, you're here. I didn't notice you. I arrived just a moment ago, but… Oh, did you? Well, anyway, Justin, why don't you come and stay with me at my place from now on? Eh? I let out a surprised exclamation at this unexpected proposal. Hearing that, my mother-in-law gave me a cold look. What's wrong? Do you have a problem with that? No, it's not that. It's just a bit sudden. With my son like this, I can't leave everything up to you. I was irritated by her words. I thought that there was no need for her to say that. Then my husband said, Valerie has been working hard all this time. That's why I trust her going forward. Thank you. My mother-in-law seemed to make a displeased noise. I couldn't hear it clearly, but she obviously looked unhappy. However, I couldn't back down either. Well, anyway, come to the house as soon as you're discharged from the hospital. Of course, you're invited too, Valerie. That goes without saying. I could predict what would happen if everything were left up to my mother-in-law. By the way, Valerie, I'm leaving all the moving arrangements to you. Everything? That's a bit much. She's right. It's too much for one person to handle alone. Mom, please help her out somehow. I was hoping that he would insist more strongly. However, it seemed like my mother-in-law had no intention of helping and ignored my husband's words. I have my own things to do, you know. My mother-in-law smirked at me from an angle that my husband couldn't see. It felt very ominous. And so, our life living with my mother-in-law began. A month later, my husband was discharged from the hospital. I was busy with the move, so I left picking him up to my mother-in-law. After all, she was the one who had given the instructions for cleaning things up. As I hurried to finish the cleaning, my mother-in-law came and said, "Aren't you done yet? I told you today was Justin's discharge day, and yet you didn't even come to pick him up. But that's because you see Justin, just like I said, right? This person only thinks about herself. That's not true." My mother-in-law's intention was clear. She was trying to make me look bad in front of my husband. I decided not to take her obvious bait. Looking at my husband, he had a warm and understanding look in his eyes. "Come on, Mom, stop this. It's unsightly. I'm doing this for your sake. Well, no one asked you to." Wait, the sight of my mother-in-law running after my husband was comically pathetic. I almost let out a laugh. When she noticed that, she glared at me with an evil expression. Not that her glare meant anything to me. "Justin, you can just take it easy and relax at home from now on." That's impossible. My right hand might not work, but I don't want to be a burden on Valerie. I can understand that, but you've also just been discharged from the hospital. Still, I can be satisfied if I don't do something. Justin was adamant. Initially, I had hoped he would take some time to relax, but seeing his determination, I decided to respect his wishes. Doing everything at once might be too much. So how about starting with some light cleaning? It could be good for rehabilitation. That's a good idea. I don't know if this hand will ever fully recover, but it's better than doing nothing. but on one condition. Don't overdo it. Got it. I wouldn't want to be scolded. It's scary to make you angry. What do you mean? Justin acted as if nothing was wrong. It was clear that he didn't want to make me worry. That's why I resolved to work even harder for the both of us. But I had forgotten about one person who would interfere. Valerie, wait a minute. What's the matter? Why is Justin cleaning? He wanted to help out. You must have forced him to do it, right? Your words are just a front. My mother-in-law judged things only by what she saw. She was oblivious to the underlying thoughts and emotions. Dealing with that was a challenge in itself. You're always just cooped up in your room, playing around. Honestly, in such a situation, with your husband seriously injured. Actually, I'm working. It's called remote work these days. Humph, I've had enough of that excuse. It's not an excuse. Just then, my mother-in-law grabbed a nearby trash can and threw it at me. Luckily, it didn't hit me directly, but the trash went everywhere. I lost the energy to explain things to her further. It was clear from the start that she had no intention of listening. This trash is disgusting. Clean it up yourself. As I sighed and started picking it up, Justin approached me and asked, "Hey, what happened?" "Oh, this is just a small incident." I replied with a forced smile, but Justin seemed to have realized something. He usually appears calm, but sometimes he's surprisingly perceptive. "Did Mom do something?" Are you hiding something? Can you be honest with me?" Justin was looking at me with a serious expression. Seeing his face, I felt that I couldn't lie. So, I told him what had happened. "Got it. I'll talk to Mom about this." "Oh, it's fine, really. But it's not okay. I'll talk to her properly." "No, but that is." I was happy to get his help, but I was worried about what would come next. In the end, I would be the one blamed. I stared at the ceiling, deep in thought. Night camel. I thought Valerie was just playing around. That's not true. Valerie has been working hard, even doing my share. Then why were you cleaning? I offered to do it. I can't just sit around doing nothing at home. But you just got out of the hospital. I know my own body best. Justin's stern words silenced his mother. She might not have expected her son to speak to her like that. But if she really does think that she's above such things, she's just arrogant. I hoped that this would calm her down a bit. That day, Justin went out for rehabilitation, leaving me alone with my mother-in-law. As I was working in my room as usual, she showed up. "Can we talk?" "Sorry, can you wait just a bit?" "About 15 more minutes." "No, I can't wait. Right now." "All right, I'm coming." Hurried along, I went to the living room where an unknown woman was waiting for us. "Excuse me, who is this?" "Have a seat first. We'll talk after that." I had no choice but to follow my mother-in-law, but I couldn't grasp the situation. As I was trying to figure it out, the woman started speaking. "So this is the one you were talking about, the wife who just plays around without working." "Yes, it's true." My mother-in-law was laughing eerily. "So, you realize that you're an unnecessary presence in this house?" "What are you talking about?" Looking around, I saw them sighing. I didn't understand. Suddenly confronted by a stranger and put down as the target of blame. If I could, I would have left that place in an instant. "Don't you understand? Unnecessary people are not needed here." "What do you mean?" Everyone answers that way. More perplexing questions followed. They kept insisting on how incompetent I was. Enduring such accusations could mentally exhaust anyone. "Isn't it time you realized your place? Shouldn't I be asking you? How dare a daughter-in-law defy her mother-in-law? Spending time on such unproductive things. Isn't it a waste of time?" "What? The nerve of a daughter-in-law. Really now?" I felt like I was reaching my limit. I didn't know what my mother-in-law would do if she got angrier. That's when I came up with an idea. "Oh, isn't it about time that Justin comes back from rehab? Is it that time already?" Just then, the unknown woman left quickly. "I'll come again soon." "Okay, I'll be waiting for you. Let's talk again." My mother-in-law and her friend were fooled. In reality, Justin wouldn't be home for another hour. It was just getting good. Speaking of which, who was that woman? I finally asked a question that had been on my mind. That's Susan, a close friend of mine. She wanted to meet you after hearing about you. It wasn't hard to guess how my mother-in-law had introduced me. Probably as a useless wife who does nothing but play around. I pitied my mother-in-law for doing nothing else but that. So, that's the case. Well, Justin will be back a bit later. I'm going back to work now. As I was about to return to my room, she said, "Wait, what do you mean?" Just as I said, "He's not coming back yet." You lied. You didn't realize. Why do you act like this? I decided to use this opportunity to speak my mind. Any further interference from my mother-in-law would just be a nuisance. Actually, you were the one who started things, right? You called your friend because you can't do anything alone? That's not true. I can handle you fine by myself. Then why don't you try? See if you really can. I deliberately provoked my mother-in-law. I thought this would prompt her to take some action. And as expected, she reacted. If you want to apologize, now is the time. I have no such intention. At that, my mother-in-law exploded in anger, grabbing a nearby vase and throwing it at me like she had previously thrown the trash can. I had anticipated it and easily dodged. I even showed a provocative smile. "Hello, I'm home." Just then, Justin came back. My mother-in-law was visibly shaken. "Why are you home already?" "It's not time yet." "Oh, sorry. I lied earlier. I was actually on my way back." "Why would you do that? Isn't it obvious?" I said this while pointing to the shattered vase. I couldn't help but find the situation amusing. Hey, what's this? What happened?" "Your mom threw it at me." "What do you mean?" "You know, a lady just came over, claiming to be your mom's friend." I told Justin everything that happened. He showed a mix of being surprised and angry. "Is that true?" "Mom, well, so it's true then. Why would you do that?" "I didn't mean to." Watching my mother-in-law being scolded, I felt a sense of retribution for all the hardships I had endured. Well, I have something to do, so. Okay. Wait. I ignored my mother-in-law's words and returned to my room. I thought this would end her bullying. I truly believed it. After that, calm days continued for a while, but having stayed up all night, I dozed off past noon. Then, "Sorry to wake you, but can you come here for a moment?" "Okay, sure." Justin seemed unusually serious. My mother-in-law was there in the living room. "What's going on?" "Look at this." I looked at the table to find a disassembled plastic model scattered about. It was one of Justin's hobbies, and he had treasured it. When I came home, it was like this. "Do you know anything?" "No, I have no clue." I couldn't think of any reason for it. This plastic model was in my father-in-law's room before. But of course, I hadn't been in that room today, nor had I entered it recently. Someone must have broken it for it to be like this. My eyes naturally turned towards my mother-in-law. She was the only suspect. My mother-in-law had a strange, eerie smile on her face, like she was possessed. I understood the situation. Even if someone broke it, I was out. I met Justin on my way back from Susan's place, remember? Yes, but... And then, I found this in the room. My mother-in-law was holding a shiny object. "Is that an earring?" I instinctively checked my own ears. My left earring was missing. I was certain of my suspicions. It was clear revenge on me for last time. "This is yours, isn't it, Valerie? And it looks like only the left one is missing." I took a deep breath. Showing anger now would mean that I would be playing into her hands. Indeed, it's mine. But isn't it premature to conclude that I broke it? Making excuses is so unbecoming. We have evidence. Still, anyway, it's broken. Wait a minute. Justin left the room. At that moment, my mother-in-law's gaze was fixed on me. The situation made me feel like Justin saw me as a criminal, and I just stood there, stunned. It's a shame. This would have been the end of you if you did it. You set a trap, didn't you? You'll find no evidence anywhere. If only you had followed my advice, this wouldn't have happened. If I explain things to him properly, he'll understand. Will he? Her words became reality. No matter how much I insisted to Justin that it wasn't my fault, he wouldn't take me seriously. Wait, I haven't done anything wrong. Maybe. I get it. He immediately averted his gaze. Laughter echoed from behind us. See, I told you so. What does that matter? It's sad that you don't want to admit defeat. After that, I immersed myself in work. It was almost like escaping from reality. Conversations with Justin became less frequent, and about 2 weeks went by. During this time, my mother-in-law seemed quite pleased with herself. You seem down lately. Is there something troubling you? There's no need for you to worry. Please stop. It's too late for that. Acting tough is useless. On this day, my mother-in-law was in an especially good mood. My feeling of foreboding came true, eventually becoming reality. It happened while I was cleaning the room. Why are you even in this house? You're like a parasite, living off of us here. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? You always talk back. Such a noisy daughter-in-law. After saying that, she threw my belongings out of the window. What are you doing? I protested her insane actions. What's gotten into me? You're too noisy. Always talking back. Can you pick my stuff up, please? As I said that, my mother-in-law put a knife to my throat. I was frozen in fear, unable to move. It's better if you stay still. A normal person wouldn't do this, but my mother-in-law was clearly deranged. If you don't leave now, next time it won't be just a joke. I understand. I'll leave. It was evident that staying would only drag me further in her madness. You have a week. Leave before then. Thank you. This was an opportunity to escape. A week was enough time to prepare. My mother-in-law didn't understand. Who truly supports this house? She lives comfortably and leisurely thanks to me. She really knows nothing. Pack up quickly. Yes, I'll start right away. A smile formed on my lips as I bowed my head, but I couldn't let her suspect anything. I quickly composed my face. This will bring peace back to our home. I'm so happy. Yes, indeed. I wondered if she really understood. Without me, real hell awaited her. I immediately started arranging my move. My belongings could be sorted, but finding a new place to live was the priority. After my mother-in-law had gone to bed, I explained the situation to Justin. I see. So it has come to this. Actually, I have something to tell you too. His serious tone made me raise my voice in surprise. What? Yes, various things. We'll talk about it later. Okay, we absolutely will. 3 days after being told to leave the house by my mother-in-law, I found a new place. And now, the promised week was almost up. Well, today's the day of the promise. You understand, right? Yes, the movers are scheduled to arrive soon. Finally. And where's Justin? He seems to have gone out since this morning. Well, never mind. The thought of not having to see your face anymore is enough. I'm going out now, make sure everything's clean. Understood. I saw my mother-in-law off with a smile on my face, but not one from the heart. An hour later, the moving company arrived and loaded all my belongings. I contacted Justin. All packed up. Got it. Just make sure you get there safely. Okay. See you later. I ended the call. I was excited to think about what would happen when my mother-in-law returned. I couldn't wait to arrive at my new home. Finally, the moment of completing the move arrived. What have you done? I just did as I was told. That can't be. Justin's belongings are nowhere to be found. Of course. We moved out together. No way. Do you want to check with him? I got out my phone, set it to the speaker, and handed it to my mother-in-law, who still couldn't grasp the situation. This was my plan all along. Mom? Justin? What's happening? Tell me. Actually, about the model kit incident. We know that you did it. There's no way Valerie would do such a thing. Why do you think that? Because it was a gift from Valerie. She wouldn't break it on purpose. Justin was right. The broken model was a gift I had given him. A limited edition that I had lined up early in the morning to buy for him. In other words, Justin knew everything from the beginning and was testing you. That's right. I wanted to see how badly you were treating Valerie. No way. From now on, you will have to manage on your own. We'll be living happily in our high-rise apartment. What? In a high-rise apartment? Weren't you just playing around every day? My mother-in-law seemed to have no grasp on the situation. I had thought she understood a bit more, but her lack of understanding was beyond belief. By the way, I've been paying for our living expenses up till now. I thought Justin was taking care of that. How could he when he's been at home? A little thought would have made that clear to you. My mother-in-law was at a loss for words. She was probably shocked to realize that she had been supported by the very person she had been mistreating. She was the one who misunderstood. Well then, you'll have to manage on your own from here on out. But I don't work. If you two leave me, that's the choice you made, Mom. It's no longer our business. Well, it's time for each of us to do our best. You're just going to leave your mother? What? No, we wouldn't do that. We were living separately to begin with. So, goodbye. Justin ended the call. Both of us felt relieved. We had hoped for a good relationship at first, but quickly gave up. After all, my mother-in-law chose her own fate. But why did you keep it a secret? About that. What? About what? About Mom. Oh, that. It's like they say, deceive your allies to deceive your enemy. Haha, you can't mean enemy. We looked at each other and burst out laughing. Now we could finally have a peaceful life together. About a month later. Yes, what is it? Valerie, I tried, but I can't do it alone. What are you talking about? It's only been a month, right? There's still a long way to go. Keep up the good work. No, you don't understand. Let's both do our best. Bye. My mother-in-law was desperately seeking support, but it wasn't going to be that easy. Justin had already blocked her number, so she could only contact me. No matter how much she called, I just brushed her off coldly. Do you need help with the luggage? Thank you, that would be great. But is your right hand okay? Oh, this. I've recently started to be able to use it a bit more. Really? Wow. Justin has been full of surprises recently, but I'm filled with joy. My mother-in-law's situation didn't matter anymore. From now on, we are going to put only our own happiness first. Witnessing my husband's selfish claim over the house of my late father, with whom we were living, as he declares, I'm going to make my father-in-law's house mine. Can you really not understand anything? My husband's shallow remark made me laugh beyond surprise. Seeing my long underestimated husband's family cornered by my retaliation. I, Katie Manning, had been living with my father and my husband, Ben. Since my mother passed away when I was in high school, my father raised me with endless love. My deep affection for my father remains unchanged. When I proposed living with my increasingly worrisome father to Ben, he warmly welcomed the idea of us living together in our home. Are you really okay with this? I can manage on my own, my father asked me anxiously, a concern stemming from our cohabitation proposal. When I suggested living together, he initially smiled happily but soon looked worried. I am always worried I might be a burden to you. My father always considered my feelings. However, after I expressed my desire to stay with him and Ben agreed, my father accepted with a smile. Today, Ben and I are moving into my childhood home. We began unpacking the boxes brought by the movers. Again with this? Haven't I always said this is what I wanted? You're right, Dad. Plus, this place has better access to work, which is also convenient for me. We explained, and my father nodded with a faint smile. After unpacking, we found my father had prepared coffee for us. I was about to take a coffee break when I heard footsteps coming downstairs. I thought you might want a break, so I prepared some for you too. Grateful for the warm hospitality, Ben and I enjoyed a break with him, feeling happy about the enriched life that lay ahead. After a short rest, we resumed unpacking, rolling up our sleeves for another push. Hey, if you want, you can quit your job. It's okay to stay and support your father. During the work, Ben made a surprising proposal, pausing me in astonishment. What do you mean? Think about it. Moving back here, we've cut down on our rent expenses, right? If you quit your job, taking care of your father and having fewer worries might be better, right? Currently, both of us work, with me mainly handling household chores. Though Ben helps sometimes, our days are still quite busy. I mulled over Ben's suggestion, feeling delighted at the prospect of spending more time with my father. Moreover, focusing on household chores seemed like it would reduce both mental and physical stress. Ben's proposal was very appealing, but it meant becoming financially dependent on him, which worried me. Grateful for his acceptance of the cohabitation, I pondered whether I should rely on Ben further. With a change of living environment, we decided to continue as before for now. Ben said, "I don't want you to overdo it, but the cohabitation proposal was mine." I felt I couldn't always depend on Ben. A month has passed. Hey, maybe quitting your job for your father's sake is the best after all. When Ben suggested this again, I also thought it might be the best course of action. Living together turned out to lighten my daily load unexpectedly, mainly because my father took on household chores. Returning home, I found my father had already prepared dinner or cleaned the house. Yet, this seemed to increase his burden, making me feel guilty and contemplate quitting my job to take over the chores. Yeah, I might do that. I feel bad putting financial pressure on you, Ben. What are you thinking? There's no need to worry about that. Hearing those words, I made up my mind to quit my job. When I told my father about this decision, he urged me to continue working and leave the household chores to him. But after expressing my desire to help with the chores, he understood. As a result, I chose to quit my job and dedicate myself to our home, leading to more fulfilling days spent with my father. However, gradually, changes began to appear in our lives. I'm home. Welcome back, Ben. It must have been a tough day. Yao. Is dinner ready? Ben's return home became later, and by the time he got back, my father was already asleep, decreasing the opportunities for us to eat together. Today, I was watching TV with Dad, but can you keep it down? I'm eating. Oh, sorry. When my father is nearby, Ben is as kind as he used to be, but lately, when it's just the two of us, he becomes quite cold. I feel like my quitting the job has added stress on him, and all I can do is apologize. After Ben finishes his dinner, I start to prepare his favorite evening drink, but he gets up to leave the dining area. Where are you going? What about your drink? I'm going to take a bath. He answered shortly and left, closing the door behind him with a bang. Whether he's in a bad mood or simply tired, these days leave me unable to help but sigh. The next day, I wait for Ben's return after my father has gone to sleep, but even past midnight, he hasn't come home. Worried, I try calling him but get no response. Just as I start to panic, thinking something has happened, an email arrives. What? The cold text of the email seemed to convey his feelings. Despite sighing, I felt relieved that he was safe. Still at work? I was worried because it's late. I replied, and his response came quickly. On a business trip. Those few words let me know he wouldn't be coming home tonight. I hadn't been informed about the trip, and I wish he had told me sooner, but expressing that might only irritate him further. So, you're on a business trip. Got it. How long will you be away? I sent this message, but no reply came. After that, Ben's business trips became more frequent, and he stopped telling me when he would leave or return home. My father, trying to be considerate, would ask about the situation when Ben was home, and he would answer with a cheerful smile that no longer seemed directed at me. No problem, I'm working hard for our family. Seeing his reaction made me feel like he was dissatisfied with me, and though I suggested we talk, he would say, I'm just busy or I'm tired. Let's talk later, and we never had a serious discussion. Eventually, Ben rarely returned home. Amidst growing distrust, I began to suspect he might be having an affair when I unexpectedly received a message from my mother-in-law. I need the address of the company Ben works for. A one-line email without any greetings. My in-laws have not been fond of me since the beginning of our marriage, throwing harsh words and malicious actions my way, leading to a natural distance between us. Ben understood this situation, and although it never worsened our relationship due to my in-laws' issues, it didn't improve either, and we continued to keep our distance. Receiving this sudden email from my mother-in-law, I pondered its intent before replying. It's been a while. May I know why you need Ben's work address? After sending this reply, it seemed she was indeed upset, as I immediately received an angry call. Hello, it's been a while. It's been a while. You've made Ben take care of your father and quit your job to do nothing at home. How can you do such a thing? Because of you, he's now returned to our house. He forgot his lunchbox today and went to the office, so I'm trying to deliver it. What are you going to do about this attitude? It's unforgivable. Give me the address right away. And from now on, Ben will be living at our house. Shocked by my mother-in-law's angry words, I was left speechless. It turned out that the days Ben claimed to be away on business trips, he had actually returned to his parents' home. Learning how my in-laws spoke about me was deeply shocking. It was Ben who said it would be okay for me to quit my job, yet I couldn't help but feel his true intentions were different. Overwhelmed with sadness, I felt like I couldn't stop my tears. Without arguing, I simply provided Ben's work address and ended the call. Trying to calm myself, I made some coffee in the living room when my father came in. Asking him if he would like some coffee with a smile as usual, he looked at me, smiled back, and accepted. As we enjoyed our coffee, my father started talking about the past. Your mom and I used to argue a lot when we were young. There were many misunderstandings, but we always tried to be honest with each other, and that's how we solved many issues. Couples who can argue and then fix their relationship might understand each other better and become stronger, he said warmly. His words deeply resonated with me, and I decided to have a serious conversation with Ben. That's true, Dad? Thank you, I told him, and he responded with a kind smile. Afterward, I sent an email to Ben outlining the facts from my conversation with his mother and expressing my desire to talk. However, Ben replied dismissively, making me sigh deeply. Anger towards Ben began to build inside me. I wanted to respond immediately in my emotional state, but took a deep breath to calm myself. This situation led to Ben stopping his contributions to our household finances. Attempts to contact him were met with silence, and messages about living expenses were ignored. My love for him gradually faded due to his selfish behavior. Finding no meaning in our marriage, thoughts of divorce crossed my mind. I was disappointed in Ben for being so irresponsible and self-centered. However, not wanting to worry my father further, I decided to postpone discussions about divorce and support myself using my savings from before we were married. Getting used to Ben's absence, I enjoyed my days with my father until he suddenly fell ill. Rushed to the hospital, we were told he didn't have much time left. Overwhelmed and unable to stop my tears, I couldn't hear the doctors or nurses. Visiting my father's room, he tried to smile and apologized for worrying me. Holding his hand, I smiled back, saying, "Don't worry, you'll get better," despite my eyes swelling with tears. Seeing my father, who looked sad despite laughing and asking, "What's with that face?" I felt tears welling up in my eyes again. Because hospitalization was necessary, I temporarily returned home to prepare what was needed. However, upon returning to my childhood home alone, I was overwhelmed by a sense of loneliness, and I couldn't stop my tears. This house, where I grew up since I was a child. Even though I had left it when I got married, this place is filled with countless memories. Unable to bear the loneliness of being alone, I simply cried incessantly. During this difficult time, I received a cold message from Ben. "Since we're living separately, handle your own expenses. Maybe use your father-in-law's pension?" Reading this, I threw my phone in frustration. All my feelings for Ben vanished at that moment. Shaken by anger and sorrow, I realized dwelling on my feelings for Ben was a waste. Wondering how my father would feel seeing me like this calmed my mind. Regaining my composure, I washed my face and prepared to leave for the hospital. Just then, I received mail containing good news that could change my current situation. Seeing this, I made up my mind. Leaving the documents at home for now, I hurried to the hospital. My father's condition worsened gradually, and I had to accept that our time to say goodbye was nearing. Days passed with joyous conversations at the hospital, only to return home to tears. Eventually, my father passed away peacefully. I was there to witness his serene departure, but the sense of loss overwhelmed me, leaving me in tears. However, the legacy my father left was immeasurable and deeply etched in my heart. The funeral, with the help of relatives, went smoothly, but Ben and my in-laws did not show up until the end. I hadn't specifically informed them about my father's passing, so I hadn't expected them to attend. Nonetheless, it seemed they had learned of his death through relatives because, a few days after settling the estate and paperwork, Ben suddenly appeared with a lot of luggage. "It's been a while. I heard your father passed away." Seeing Ben's face stirred anger within me, but I suppressed the impulse and took a deep breath to remain calm. "What do you want? What's with the luggage? Isn't that a bit harsh for a husband returning home?" "Oh, this luggage is my parents' stuff." "Huh?" The fact that Ben used the word husband was profoundly irritating. His words made no sense to me. After he had left the house, stopped providing for living expenses, and lived as he pleased, claiming now to be a husband was beyond surprising. It was appalling. I was at a loss for words. "Were you waiting for me? Jobless, struggling with living expenses, and left alone to care for your father? Happy, are you? So happy you're speechless?" "No, it seems I was the one caught in your plan." Ben's mention of a plan caught my attention, prompting me to ask for clarification. The answer I received was unbelievable. Living with an old man was something I couldn't accept. Impossible to live with the elderly. But saying that might make you think about divorce. If we divorced, I couldn't get this house. So, I chose to live together and pushed you into unemployment by pretending to be the ideal husband, making you dependent on me and the elderly man. That way, the house would become mine. Hearing his words, I found myself glaring at Ben sharply. This was not normal thinking. Reflecting on our marriage made me despise myself and feel deep guilt towards my father. I struggled to contain my trembling anger. "Your story doesn't add up. You're the one who left and stopped paying the living expenses." When I pointed this out, Ben scratched his head in annoyance. Yeah, I had reached my limit. I didn't realize I was so short-tempered. But I thought the plan would work even without me, assuming you wouldn't have the courage to bring up divorce. His smug smile made me forget what had ever attracted me to him. I no longer wanted to see his face or hear his voice. My feelings towards Ben had become unbearable. The plan worked. This house might be old, but it's spacious and well located. It'll be worth a lot when sold. From today, my parents and I will live here. Could there be anyone more self-centered? It seemed morality was foreign to him, which wasn't surprising considering his parents. As I stood dumbfounded, he continued to insult me further. "The house of your father is mine. Get out." Watching my in-laws' belongings being moved in, I realized Ben was completely oblivious to the situation. Ben looked down on me confidently, disrespecting my father and making it impossible to leave things as they were. Seeing Ben standing there so smugly made me burst into laughter, unable to hold it back. My sudden laughter confused Ben. "Have you lost your mind? That's the perfect description for you." The thought of confronting him with reality made my laughter uncontrollable. Seeing me laugh, Ben became furious. However, ignoring his reaction, I laid out the reality. "Don't you know? This is my house. It could never become yours." Surprised and frozen by my words, I continued. "Besides, you and I are now unrelated. Didn't your mother tell you?" Laughing as I said this, Ben seemed utterly stunned. Then, he immediately started contacting someone on his smartphone, apparently his mother. "What, Mom? Katie's saying something weird. We haven't divorced, have we? She said I hadn't heard anything from you." "What do you mean, you sent it? Really? How did this happen?" Watching Ben's speechless reaction, it seemed he finally grasped the situation. After ending the call, Ben's expression was twisted as if he was looking at something incomprehensible. "Did you really submit a divorce application?" he asked. "Yes, I did. The day your father was taken to the hospital, your mother sent me a completed divorce form by post, which I happily submitted the next day." "Your mother has her moments, doesn't she?" I replied. "Damn it. Even if it arrived, you weren't supposed to submit it. It was something my mother made me write just in case, not intending to actually divorce." Ben was furious. "But you filled it out yourself, didn't you? Whether or not you intended to doesn't matter. I completed the divorce process as you wished, so you should be thanking me," I calmly retorted. Seeing Ben frustrated, I felt a sense of relief inside. The divorce form from my mother-in-law might have been intended as harassment, but for me, wanting a divorce, it was a stroke of luck. Later, Ben anxiously questioned me about property division and the house's ownership, but I dismissed his concerns. It was clear there were no significant assets to divide, so I informed him there was no need for division. I explained that due to the short cohabitation period with my father and the assets being in my father's name at the time of the divorce, they were not subject to division. Ben insisted on a financial demand, claiming even my savings from before marriage should be split, but I informed him his claims had no basis. He turned pale, attempting to argue but only opening and closing his mouth, resembling a fish out of water. Though tempted to mock him, I chose to maintain a mature demeanor and calm myself. Let's send this here. It's problematic for someone to bring their belongings into another person's home uninvited, which clearly constitutes trespassing. If you plan to stay any longer, I'll have to call the police. As I said this, Ben hurriedly gathered his belongings and left. I spread salt at the entrance and prayed to my parents' portraits. This is for the best. I'll become stronger, so please watch over me. Thinking of my parents meeting again in heaven eased my loneliness and lightened my heart. Emboldened by this new resolve, I began looking for a job. It was then that a friend contacted me, knowing I was job hunting, and offered to introduce me to a job that matched my expertise. Thanks to their recommendation, I quickly secured a position after an interview with HR. A few days later, I received a message from Ben. Sorry for being stubborn the other day. Actually, I wanted to start over with you, which is why I came to the house. Finding the message unbelievable, I struggled with how to reply but ultimately decided to ignore it. Yet, Ben continued to send poetic messages like a relentless suitor. Once, we were like the sun and the moon. Days spent longing for you, unreachable, are now behind us. Now, we can be closer. Without your love, I'm nothing. Won't you give me your overflowing love once more? I'll dedicate everything to you. I treasure you more than anything. Our love will last forever. No matter where I am, I'll continue to love you, for your heart is my home. Each time I received these poetic messages, I shared them with colleagues, wondering if they could serve as material for work. Currently working as an illustrator in a cartoon editorial department, these emails sometimes prove to be useful inspiration. Look, the melodramatic stalker is back. It's great to have something to laugh about in tough times. Unknowingly, Ben has become a source of amusement. Feeling only discomfort from his messages, I've been avoiding replying. Amid these days, the doorbell at my home rang. Looking through the peephole, I saw Ben standing outside. I had never expected him to show up in person, so I decided to call the police immediately. Hey, I know you're in there. I can see your car. Please, just listen to me. I'm really in trouble right now. There was talk of moving into this house, so my parents sold their home. Now, I have nowhere to go. Help me. I could hear his voice shouting from outside, but what does that have to do with me? It highlights his recklessness for not correcting the situation the day they misunderstood this house as their own. His emails showed he hadn't given up, but I was merely astonished by his and his family's naive thinking. While the police were convincing Ben to leave, he resisted strongly but was eventually taken away by them. After that, when there was no response to the flood of Romeo emails, contacts from my in-laws began. At first, they tried calling, but when I ignored that, they switched to emails. How can you know we're in a difficult situation and not offer any help? You should contact us immediately. Why not have a serious discussion? We were once a family. Isn't it too cruel to be so indifferent? You caused us to lose our home. Now we live in a dilapidated apartment. Why won't you hand over the house? You must have received inheritance from your father. You're not struggling financially. We quit our jobs. You should take responsibility. If the child is like this, of course, the parents are too. Do they think their decisions will always prevail? I was infuriated by the audacious emails. How can they disregard others to such an extent? Although I intended to ignore them, I ended up blocking Ben and my in-laws' contacts. I considered changing my contact information, but it felt ridiculous to spend money just because of them. I was determined to ignore them, but I reached my limit. I optimistically thought blocking them would restore my peace, but soon realized my approach was short-sighted. One day, my former in-laws showed up at my doorstep. Despite being fed up with their endless harassment, understanding they knew my address made me realize such incidents were inevitable. However, I did not want to leave this house filled with many memories. Come out, you know we're in trouble. Change your mood? I'm proposing we get back together, accept it. How can you ignore someone in trouble? What kind of human does that? The doorbell and knocking were incessant, but I did not hesitate to call the police. Suddenly, the noise from outside stopped. Peeking through the hole, I saw an unfamiliar man arguing with my former in-laws. Go home, you're bothering people. The sudden appearance of the man puzzled my former in-laws. What did you say? Who are you? Could it be an affair partner? Unfazed by their backlash, the man looked at them coldly. Your attitude is the problem. Look around. This is a residential area. Look, people are gathering because of you. You're really causing a disturbance. Indeed, through the limited view of the peephole, I could see neighbors gathering, which felt somewhat embarrassing. However, seeing my former family flustered and stuttering but was when the police arrived. It seemed one of the officers had encountered this scene before, saying to Ben, "It's you guys again." Hearing this, my former in-law's faces turned red. "How much trouble are you going to cause? Get some awareness." I silently thanked the man as he walked away, relieved. Afterward, my former in-laws were taken away in a police vehicle, and the onlookers dispersed. Hours later, the doorbell rang again, and peering through the peephole, I saw the man from the earlier argument standing there. Surprised to see him, I hesitated before cautiously opening the door. The man greeted me with a warm smile. "It's been a while. If you were back, you should have let me know." I recognized his face, but I couldn't immediately recall who he was until he reintroduced himself. "Don't tell me you've forgotten. It's been over 10 years after all. Remember me? I'm Scott." Hearing his name, memories flooded back. Scott, my childhood friend known as Scotty in our hometown. Scotty. Now that you mention it, you really are Scotty. Scott used to live next door and we hadn't seen each other since changing elementary schools. Finally remembered, I've moved back to the area. We're neighbors again. It's really been a long time. And thank you for earlier. It meant a lot to me. After expressing my gratitude again, Scott just laughed it off, making me smile too. We caught up on old times, and I ended up telling him about the recent disturbances. Scott promised to support me whenever needed, proving to be a reliable friend. When I mentioned my father's passing, Scott offered to pay his respects, remembering him from our childhood. The joy of having someone who shared my past was profound. Days passed, and I received a letter from a law firm out of the blue containing a notification. Opening the unexpected envelope, I found it claimed I had committed infidelity during my marriage, demanding payment for damages. Shocked by the situation, I noticed a message from an unknown email address on my smartphone titled regarding the notification. The message read, "Your ex-husband Ben has initiated a lawsuit claiming marital infidelity on your part. Admitting and dealing with this straightforwardly will avoid escalating the matter. We plan to inform your workplace. Considering your future, we advise settling this matter promptly," suggesting a threat. It was clear this was a scheme by my former in-laws, not a genuine liar's notification. Upon closer inspection, the quality of the notification raised doubts about its authenticity, prompting me to consult a real lawyer. The lawyer confirmed it was a complete forgery, and the supposed attorney's name was not registered, revealing the document as fake. Despite knowing better, I decided to play along in my reply, indicating a willingness to consider their claims but asking for evidence of my supposed infidelity. "The alleged mental anguish suffered by Ben is immense, and we seek compensation for that," they replied, without any tangible proof. Such baseless claims seemed unlikely to involve legal professionals. I assert there was no infidelity on my part, hence no evidence exists. It's hard to believe professionals would intervene based on such unfounded claims, wouldn't you agree? Moved by Ben's passion, we wish to assist him. We expect your sincere cooperation, not intending to escalate this matter further. Quite an emotional approach for a professional. You're aware impersonating a lawyer is illegal and punishable, right? Just to confirm, you do hold legitimate qualifications? This inquiry halted their previously prompt responses. Curious about the next move, I received a new email. "I am indeed a professional. However, your arguments were unbeatable. We've decided to withdraw the lawsuit. No need for withdrawal, as I have no passion for this matter and am entirely calm about being falsely accused of infidelity. I intend to legally counter this. Looking forward to meeting this passionate lawyer in court." After this exchange, all communication ceased. However, the silence did not last long as my former in-laws once again showed up at my house. Despite it being late at night, they started begging loudly at the front door, "We made a mistake. Please spare us from the lawsuit." Awakened by the noise, I checked the time and it was past 1 a.m. Anger at being deprived of sleep reached its peak, and I yelled, "Please be quiet. Stop bothering me." Never having seen me so angry before, my former in-laws couldn't hide their surprise. "If you come any closer and cause more trouble, I won't overlook it." With that declaration and grabbing my father's wooden sword that was at hand, my former in-laws' expressions changed drastically. Especially my former mother-in-law and Ben, who seemed to tremble in fear, whispering, "We're so sorry." You should have changed your actions from the beginning if you were sorry. Never appear before me again. I scolded, and my former mother-in-law nodded with tears in her eyes. Then, the lights of a patrol car caught my eye, heading our way. Due to the late hour, it seemed neighbors had reported them, and my former in-laws were immediately taken away by the arriving officers. They tried to attack me with a wooden sword. My former mother-in-law pointed at me and appealed to the police, but she was taken away. When the police asked me, "Is this true?" I explained the doorbell kept ringing and someone was banging on the door at this hour, so I took the wooden sword for self-defense, to which they nodded understandingly. Scott was by my side and told the police he had witnessed the former in-law's repeated visits. With his testimony, the police deemed the actions malicious and promptly took my former in-laws away, finally restoring peace. The next day, following Scott's advice, I filed a report. With multiple incidents involving the police already, the process went smoothly. Scott mentioned he had noticed the former in-law's assault the previous night and was about to say something when he heard me shouting. According to him, my voice was terrifying. Subsequently, a restraining order was issued against my former in-laws, and they never troubled me again. Moreover, someone had recorded the commotion, and the footage ended up on the internet, making them the secret talk of the neighborhood, unable to move due to lack of financial means. It's unclear how they're living now, but they're probably relying on the former in-law's retirement funds. As for me, Scott and I grew closer rapidly, and within a few months of reuniting, he confessed his love and we started dating. Scott always makes me smile, and the time he spent with him is genuinely happy. I feel like this turn of events is a gift from my father, filling me with gratitude. Get out because I'm moving in with my family. Jeff pointed at us and loudly declared while my in-laws were giving instructions to the movers. His face twisted maliciously, and I couldn't help but show my disgust. However, Stacy next to me reacted differently, asking Jeff with confusion, "Dad, you didn't know?" Hearing this, Jeff was visibly puzzled. Stacy seemed so flustered that not only Jeff but also his mother and father stopped what they were doing and looked over at us. But Nicole continued to give instructions to the movers, seemingly uninterested in the situation. Despite my dismay at the behavior of Jeff's family, I was determined to reveal a certain truth. My name is Dina Anderson, a 46-year-old remote worker. I have a husband and a daughter, leading a typical life. After several dates, Jeff proposed to me 3 years into our relationship. Having a frequently ill mother, I wanted to marry as soon as possible to give her peace of mind, so I accepted Jeff's proposal. Sometime after our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Jeff was truly happy, eagerly looking forward to seeing our child. When our daughter Stacy was born, Jeff took an active role in parenting, and I lived happily. However, I had some worries. The biggest concern was about my mother. Her health improved upon seeing her grandchild, despite being almost bedridden before, and she visited us often. Initially, she visited frequently, but as Stacy entered middle school, my mother's health visibly declined. I quit my job to be available for my mother, choosing remote work. This decision allowed me to fully take care of my mother's hospital admissions and discharges by the time Stacy graduated middle school. My mother was very happy when we visited her. I hoped she would gradually recover and be able to go out as before. However, around this time, Jeff's behavior began to change. Initially, he was willing to help with my mother's care, but lately, he had become grumpy, complaining that I wasn't paying attention to him. "Going to your mother's again? You don't care for me when I'm tired from work, but you always look after your sick mother. I wish I were sick too." He would say such incomprehensible things, and even when Stacy and I tried to appease him, he strongly rejected our efforts. Worried about both my mother and Jeff, Stacy took over caring for Jeff. "Mom, leave Dad to me. You should go to Grandma's sooner," Stacy said with a smile, and I always relied on her. One day, while living this way, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Nicole. "You've been neglecting my brother lately," she accused out of the blue, making me stare at my phone screen in surprise. I wondered if there was a mix-up, but Nicole's name was clearly displayed on my phone screen. Confused by the baseless accusation, I could only deny it. It's been a while, Nicole. What's going on all of a sudden? I haven't been neglecting Jeff. I was clueless as to why Nicole would say such a thing. Don't play dumb. I've heard it from my brother. Lately, you've been neglecting the house to care only for your own mother. Can you still proudly call yourself a wife? Indeed, I had been focusing more on my ill mother lately, but I never thought Jeff would tell Nicole about it. However, I wasn't neglecting our home. Stacy helps with the household chores when she gets back from school, and I manage both my work and my mother's care along with the housework. Lately, I did feel like Jeff's complaints had increased, but they were about trivial things like wanting to eat at expensive restaurants or not liking the smell of the laundry detergent. Things we couldn't do much about. I was not neglecting the household chores. Just as I was about to explain in detail, Nicole said something shocking. Unfortunately, this has reached our parents too. Someday, our angry mother might come to scold you. Leaving me with those irrational words, Nicole hung up immediately. Surprised by the unexpected turn of events, I was speechless until Stacy spoke to me. Mom, I'm home. What happened? You look stunned. Regaining my composure, I told Stacy, who had just returned from school, about the conversation. Stacy, too, was shocked and incredulous, sighing in disbelief. Hey, Mom, there's something I've been thinking about for a while. Can I talk to you about it? Nervously, I nodded to Stacy's serious request. Listening to Stacy's concerns made me feel truly disheartened. During a period filled with Jeff's nonsensical complaints and Nicole's harassing calls, my in-laws finally took action. One day, after visiting my mother, I came home to find my mother-in-law cooking in the kitchen. Entering the living room, I was so surprised that I dropped my things and just stood there, staring at her. Noticing me, my mother-in-law frowned and approached. Oh, you're back. How's your mother? Well, have a seat anyway. Feeling her irritation, I had no choice but to follow her past me to our living room sofa, where I received a lengthy lecture. Initially, she scolded me for my attitude towards Jeff and berated me for neglecting my household duties and making my husband do chores. However, I noticed some inconsistencies in her lecture and corrected her. Mother, there are some misunderstandings. I have never made Jeff do the household chores. In fact, Jeff hardly helps at all. Embarrassingly, it's Stacy who helps me out. Hearing this, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up, pointed at me, and started shouting. Do you think that lie will work on me? Are you saying that child is lying to me? What a terrible daughter-in-law. That's enough. With her face red with anger, she stormed out, leaving the stove on and everything behind like a tempest. I hurried to turn off the stove so I couldn't chase after my mother-in-law. That day, Jeff was in a strangely good mood, almost unnervingly generous. He kept cutting me off every time I tried to start a conversation. Stacy also seemed puzzled by this, so we decided to stay silent and watch the situation for now, not wanting to upset Jeff. For a few days, Jeff continued to be in a good mood without any issues. Thanks to that, I was able to take care of my mother without feeling uneasy. However, a few days later, my mother quietly passed away. Stacy and I, though engulfed in sadness, managed to get through the funeral and decided to spend some time sorting through my mother's belongings at her house. I had wanted Jeff to help, but mentioning it made him sullen for the first time in a while. So, Stacy and I proceeded with the task, and naturally, the house was filled with memories of my mother, making it difficult to make much progress as each item reminded us of her. I reluctantly contacted Jeff and ended up staying at my mother's house for the night, but he seemed to be in a good mood. Take your time and relax since you're already there, he said, but with Stacy's school and my work, it wasn't that simple. For the time being, I told him we would return home the next day and decided to rest for the night. The next day, after making some progress with the sorting, we decided to go back to our house. As we approached our home, I noticed a large truck parked in front of the house. Wondering what it was, I realized it was a moving truck, with Jeff and my mother-in-law directing the unloading. What's going on here? I ran up with Stacy to stop them, but Jeff stepped forward, puffing out his chest as he noticed us. What? You're back already? It's too late for you to return now. What? As I stood there in shock, watching the belongings being moved into the house, Jeff crossed his arms and continued proudly. I'm moving in with my family, so you two need to leave. While the movers were receiving instructions from my in-laws, Jeff pointed at us and loudly declared. His face twisted maliciously, and I couldn't help but show my disgust. However, Stacy, standing next to me, asked Jeff with confusion. Dad, you didn't know? Hearing this, Jeff was visibly puzzled. Stacy seemed so flustered that not only Jeff but also his mother and father stopped what they were doing and looked over at us. But Nicole continued to give instructions to the movers, seemingly uninterested in the situation. Despite my dismay at the behavior of Jeff's family, I was determined to reveal a certain truth. Forgotten? This house is mine. The in-laws were shocked, and Jeff began to panic, turning pale. Even Nicole stopped directing the movers and confronted me. What are you talking about? There's no way you could afford to build such a fine house. Now it was my turn to respond with confidence. Thank you for the compliment. This house was built by my father, and originally, it's my family home. That can't be true. This house is so beautiful, it looks almost brand new. Does it look that way? Thank you, Mother. My mom renovated it for us as a wedding gift. Jeff should know about this. I couldn't understand how it could have been forgotten, but this house is naturally in my name, and the renovation costs were covered by my mother. She moved out happily to an apartment so that we could live here happily for a long time. Jeff and I went to thank my mother and even discussed living together. Jeff, who tends to forget things that don't suit him, seemed to realize that his plan had failed. And, just as I was about to speak, Stacy began to share information she learned from the inheritance process. Grandma left a lot of assets for me and Mom. But it's not money. It's things like land and apartments that can't easily be converted into cash. Hearing this, Jeff turned to his parents with shining eyes, and Nicole raised her hand in joy. Wait a minute. I had no idea your mother had so much wealth. You never said anything about this when we got married. Jeff's outburst led his family to start complaining selfishly. What's that? Isn't that like marriage fraud? That's terrible. You intentionally kept quiet because you didn't intend to give Jeff any of the property. What a greedy woman. And from the conversation earlier, it sounded like only you two would inherit everything? My father-in-law, who noticed the most crucial part, looked at us, and I nodded clearly while explaining the situation. Yes, the inheritance is divided between Stacy and me only. Jeff gets nothing. We found the will while sorting through the belongings yesterday. Hearing this, Jeff's family turned red with anger, especially his mother, who was the most furious. This can't be allowed. We'll get a divorce then. I'll make sure to get compensation from you. As his mother screamed in anger and frustration, I accepted her reaction without hesitation. Yes, I agreed to the divorce. The moment I agreed, his mother turned around and ran off, presumably to the city office, which is probably close by, to get a divorce form. I deliberately did not stop her angry departure and watched her leave. As I watched his mother head to the office, Jeff asked me grumpily, Hey, what are you planning to do now? What do you mean? Are you talking about the divorce or where you will live? Both. Jeff almost snapped at me, but I looked up at the house indifferently. This house is actually already on the market, I said, which surprised Jeff. What? Confused by my words, Jeff looked puzzled. He exchanged looks with his father and then looked back at me. He didn't seem to understand what I meant. Of course, it was to be expected. While we were spending another night at my mother's house, there was no way Jeff and his family could have imagined that I was selling this house. Facing the puzzled Jeff and his family, I once again spoke up with confidence. I've always felt it. Every time you treated me terribly, I wondered why I married you. I put up with it for Stacy's sake. But even Stacy said she couldn't take it anymore with you. Jeff, faced with this shocking truth, turned pale and looked at Stacy. Then Stacy firmly met Jeff's gaze and voiced her thoughts. Dad, you always said it was sad to be ignored as the head of the house, or to be belittled after coming home tired from work. But don't you think there's a reason you're treated that way? Why don't you realize that you're neglecting and belittling us? Stacy's pointed words left Jeff speechless. I thought if he just silently signed the divorce papers, sulking away, I would have nothing more to say. Just as I was thinking this, Nicole blurted out something shocking. If I knew it would come to this, I wouldn't have bothered with the renovation. Everyone present was taken aback by the sudden confession, looking at Nicole all at once. I was surprised not only that Jeff and my father-in-law were unaware of Nicole's actions, but also by her statement itself. Why would you do something like that without permission? Yelled my father-in-law, to which Nicole started making excuses without much concern. I wanted to live in my ideal room, okay? So I thought, why not take over this house and renovate it while we're at it? But you're selling the house, right? Oh, but if you're selling it, why not renovate it and sell it for more? Nicole's nonchalant and cheery demeanor as she said this made Stacy and me sigh. Not only were we dismayed, but Jeff and my father-in-law felt the same, with Jeff clenching his fists in suppressed anger. Finally, unable to tolerate Nicole's recklessness, he began to yell, Hey, Cess, even if it's going to be sold or become ours, you should have told us first. We were preparing to move. Where were we supposed to live during the renovation? Though his preamble was a bit off, his point was valid, leaving Nicole surprised. Oh, really? As Nicole responded, Jeff was about to yell again when we saw my mother-in-law running towards us from a distance. It seemed she had brought the divorce papers. I got it, the divorce papers. Now, sign it right here. Despite being out of breath and excited, my mother-in-law, who was handing me the divorce papers, was unaware of the commotion that had just occurred. But that didn't matter to me. I took the divorce papers from her and handed them to Jeff. You write it. After all the times you've belittled me, you agree to our divorce, right? No way. Jeff immediately refused, possibly because he knew about my mother's inheritance. However, I couldn't tolerate Jeff's behavior and his family's strange antics any longer. So, I provoked him, aiming to get him to write the divorce papers. Changing your tune so suddenly? I guess you've been in a good mood lately because you were thinking of taking over my house, right? Too bad. Even without my mother's inheritance, I had no intention of handing over this house, and it's already planned to be sold. Either way, you'll end up homeless. At my words, Jeff looked bitterly at the divorce papers. Trying to control his anger and calm himself, I knew too well the points that would set Jeff off. It might be a disgrace to you, but if you sign this divorce paper, I might feel a bit relieved. I figured that by demanding from a position of superiority, Jeff would easily be swayed to do as I wished, given his condescending view of me. This statement was born from such thoughts, but indeed, it contained many of my true feelings. As expected, Jeff's face turned red with anger, and he snatched the divorce papers from my hand, starting to write immediately. If you insist so much, I'll give you your divorce. I felt a sense of relief at Jeff's hasty action. I had worried that he might reconsider and calm down, but Jeff was simple after all. After receiving the half-completed divorce papers, I filled in my part to prevent any further unexpected events and completed it. I then entrusted the finished divorce papers to Stacy and turned back to Jeff's family. All that's left is to submit this to the city office. So take all the stuff you brought in with you. Wait a minute, are you serious? You said you'd feel relieved if Jeff signed the divorce papers. That's correct, but I never said I'd agree to the move. What about the renovation? What renovation? Unaware of the renovation discussed in her absence, my mother-in-law, standing next to my father-in-law, grabbed Nicole after receiving an explanation. A big argument started, and while my father-in-law and Jeff tried to intervene, I attempted to leave with Stacy. However, Jeff and Nicole, determined not to let us escape, grabbed at us, but the movers, who had been watching the situation with dismay, stepped in to mediate. Amid the chaos, we heard the sound of police sirens. Protected by the movers, I looked around and noticed neighbors gathered, drawn by the noise. Seeing a police car approaching with its red lights flashing, someone from the neighborhood must have called them, and we felt relieved. But that relief was short-lived as Jeff's entire family seemed about to attack us. Just in time, the police intervened and we were safe. Despite being stopped by the police, Jeff's family's commotion didn't cease, and another officer had to escort us into a police car to calm the situation. Nicole, mistaking our being escorted for an arrest, attempted to throw belongings into the house and was naturally stopped by the police, with additional support arriving to finally quell the disturbance. As Jeff's family began to calm down, the police asked us to accompany them for questioning, leading to further troubles when either Jeff, Nicole, or both acted against the officers. They were arrested for obstructing official duties and taken away in police cars that had arrived for backup. Jeff's parents were also scolded by the police and taken to the station for questioning. We watched the entire ordeal from the police car, where we gave a brief statement. Eventually, Jeff and I officially divorced. The divorce, initially resisted by Jeff even after signing the papers, was prolonged, but thanks to a lawyer, we were able to finalize it smoothly. Soon after, my house found a buyer and I was able to secure the money from the sale. Nicole was pushing for a renovation, but the house had already been renovated when my mother passed it down to me, so a buyer quickly appeared. Afterward, my in-laws were not prosecuted, but they cannot return to the house I inherited, and they had sold their own house expecting to move into mine, leaving them without a place to live. Furthermore, due to the commotion, they have become outcasts in the community, struggling to find a place to belong. It's inevitable given the extent of the uproar they caused. My claim for compensation has further cornered Jeff's family. The incident became well known at Jeff's workplace, leading to a pay cut followed by his voluntary resignation. Now, he is working day jobs to make compensation payments to me and, though only for a short while, child support for Stacy. Naturally, balancing income and expenses is difficult, and he seems to be juggling multiple jobs to keep up with the payments. Nicole, after the dust settled, continued working as a beauty consultant as if nothing had happened. However, rumors of the incident reached her customers and eventually the upper management, leading to her dismissal. She had been living a flashy lifestyle, so her savings quickly dwindled. Like Jeff, she is now working multiple jobs to make ends meet, including the compensation payments to me. As for my in-laws, it seems there was some trouble after the incident, leading to their divorce, and now they are living separately. The mother-in-law, now ostracized by the neighbors, was fired from her part-time job. The father-in-law, who was planning to enjoy his retirement with his pension, has had to allocate most of it to the compensation payments to me and is now looking for work despite his age. They are each in a difficult situation, but this is their reparation to us, and I hope they take this time to reflect. On the other hand, Stacy and I have moved to a new house, so even if Jeff's family tries to approach Stacy's school, it's no issue since she has already transferred. Continuing my work from home and thinking about spending peaceful days ahead with Stacy naturally brings a smile to my face. Feeling liberated from our past troubles, I plan to live happily with Stacy, just the two of us. Hey, why do you have the latest game console? Oh, Max wanted it, so I bought it. What? Why do you have so much money? I withdrew it from our joint account. Huh? Why did you do that? It's fine, it's marital property after all. My husband has been distributing the inheritance in each case, but honestly, it's not that much. Therefore, if my husband continues to spend money as he currently does, the funds will eventually run out. Since our son also intends to go to college in the future, tuition will be needed as well. In such a situation, I am seriously concerned about whether we can make a living in the future. My name is Nicole. I am a 43-year-old office worker. I have been married to Sean for almost 15 years now. Our son, Max, is currently 17 years old and attends high school. In fact, our son is my husband's child from a previous relationship. My husband had a previous spouse who disappeared right after giving birth. After his ex-wife disappeared, he took care of his son alone with support from his parents. Then one day, a completed divorce application arrived and he had no choice but to divorce. After some time, we started dating and eventually got married. At the time, our son was 2 years old and recognized me as his real mother. There was deep affection between Sean and me, and our son also felt close to me. So we decided to marry early and build a family. Thus, we became a couple. Despite what happened with the ex-wife, his parents warmly welcomed me. Nicole seems trustworthy. Unlike the previous wife, she doesn't have instability. Honestly, I wasn't too surprised when she suddenly disappeared. My mother-in-law said this calmly, and I admired her mental strength. With the support of my in-laws, I felt that the first experience of parenting would go smoothly. Since our son is also fond of his grandmother, she could offer advice if needed. Thus, our married life began. Our son was adorable, and our newlywed life with my husband was fun. The initial phase of marriage was truly happy. Our son grew up healthy, and the relationship within the family was good. Every day was enjoyable. When busy with work, my mother-in-law came to help, and the family supported each other through various challenges. I believed our happy days would continue indefinitely, but unexpected events happened suddenly. What? You were laid off? This happened about 10 years after we got married. Due to the economic downturn and worsening management, the company my husband worked for implemented a massive layoff, and unfortunately, my husband was one of them. Damn it. Why was I laid off? For my husband, the news of being laid off was a huge shock as he had not anticipated it. Did you ask your boss to reconsider? Of course, I tried. I also asked for the reason. They said it would be okay because my wife earns well. They told me there's no problem with our income because you work for a big company. Oh, apparently, my high income was the reason my husband was put on the layoff list. Knowing this fact, I was engulfed in complex emotions. I felt guilty, but I had worked hard in job hunting, joined my current company, and worked as an employee to increase my salary. Currently, I hold a managerial position, have subordinates, and am working as hard as I can. It's hard to accept that my efforts are seen in a negative light. But you know, if the management is bad, the company might eventually go bankrupt. It's a chance to change jobs earlier, let's think positively. That's true. Although my husband's expression was gloomy, he tried to change his mood with my encouragement. However, when nothing seems to go right, nothing progresses as hoped. He seems to be struggling to find a new job. Even when trying to find a workplace that offers a salary equivalent to his previous one, he's not successful. When I suggested, how about considering a lower salary level? He exploded in anger, asking, "Are you mocking me? I don't mean it that way, but it's going to be tough if you can't find a job. Seeing my husband suffer like this is unbearable for me." That's why I hoped he would decide to re-employ even if it meant accepting a lower salary and start working actively again. After many discussions, I encouraged him to take interviews at various companies. However, that attempt also failed. Even when considering lower salary levels, he wasn't hired. Gradually, my husband's mood became more volatile. You're the one who said to think about lowering the salary, and yet, it's completely useless. Are you trying to embarrass me? He yelled at me, overwhelmed by anger. Facing such unjust anger, I too was at a loss. However, my husband had no one but me to direct his powerless anger at. Therefore, he decided to give up on regular employment and instead started working part-time. For me, having even a little income is far better than clashing with my stressed husband. But unfortunately, misfortunes seemed to follow one after another. It was sudden, but my father-in-law passed away due to illness, leaving us speechless. The suddenness of it meant neither my husband nor I could catch up with our emotions. When we rushed to the hospital, my father-in-law had already passed away and was lying on a bed covered with a white cloth. Dad, why? We always appreciated my father-in-law's kindness, and his death brought deep sadness. An emotional outburst at the funeral was inevitable, and we shed tears. Mother, are you okay? Yes, I'm sorry to worry you. I never thought my husband would pass away first. He always said he didn't want to be left behind. He promised me, don't worry, I'll see you off. And yet, he broke that promise. My mother-in-law was deeply disappointed at losing her beloved husband. Our 12-year-old son understood the concept of death and mourned his grandfather deeply. Since then, I began visiting my mother-in-law regularly. I did so because I didn't want her to feel the loneliness that often comes with living alone. Nicole, thank you always. But aren't you pushing yourself too hard? You seem pale. No, it's nothing. I'm just a bit busy with work. I replied to my mother-in-law's concern like that. But in reality, I felt a significant burden. My husband, while only working as a part-timer 2 or 3 days a week, didn't help with household chores at all. As a result, I had to take on all household duties in between my busy work schedule, sometimes even while working overtime. My growing son had a hearty appetite, necessitating the preparation of a substantial amount of food. I'm hungry. Is dinner not ready yet? Unaware of how much I was struggling, our son made self-centered demands. I'm preparing it now. Please wait a bit. What? That's useless. Don't talk to your mom like that. Be quiet. If you don't want to be complained at, do your chores properly. Our son was entering his rebellious phase and started to behave rudely towards me. I was already mentally and physically exhausted, and facing such issues only added to the hardship. Hey, can you say something? Max's behavior has been too much lately. When I brought up the issue, my husband reluctantly responded, it's natural for a son to act that way towards his mother. He'll change his attitude as he grows up. Still, since my husband didn't support me, our son thought he could get away with anything. Can you increase my allowance, Mom? It's not possible. The amount we're giving now is enough. You'll have to manage with that. What? Our life is supported by Dad. That is, while I was at a loss for words, my husband was watching me from afar. Actually, my husband had asked me to hide the fact that he was employed on a non-regular basis from our son. He wanted to maintain his pride as a father. It seemed trivial to me, but I felt it was important to him. However, seeing our son say such things, I realized that this fact was indeed affecting him. Even the income from Mom's part-time job isn't much different from mine. If I start working part-time in high school, I could earn as much as Mom does. Our son declared this and wouldn't listen to anything I said. As a result, my stress increased day by day, and it began to show in my physique. Since I needed to prepare meals for our son and husband first, I ended up eating my portion after they had finished. Consequently, eating late and the stress made it easier for me to gain weight. Gradually, I gained about 22 pounds in half a year. Although I wouldn't be considered obese, I had clearly become rounder. Our son and husband started to mock me, comparing me to a pig and laughing. Mom, you clearly can't manage yourself. Don't come to the school open day. It's embarrassing. Our son, now in middle school, became even more disrespectful. And it seemed my husband was encouraging that attitude. Hey, why did you buy a new game console? Max wanted it, so I bought it. Wait, how did you afford that? I used our joint account. Huh? Why would you do that without asking? It's fine. It's our shared funds. I'm just trying to maintain a good relationship with our son as a father. How does giving things build a good relationship? Quiet down. Enjoying games together is a form of interaction. Don't get mad over trivial things. If you're concerned, you should worry about your own figure. My husband snapped back with those words. After that, no matter what our son requested, my husband continued to provide it instantly. Our son stopped asking me for things and only asked my husband. My husband happily fulfilled our son's requests, giving him anything, but the money used came from our shared savings. There was a time when my husband contributed a bit to the savings, but the funds were depleting at a fast pace, and soon my contributions might also be exhausted. When our son entered high school, my husband started buying him expensive wallets and brand-name clothes, probably to maintain a facade for our son, providing valuable items so our son wouldn't realize that his father was a non-regular employee. However, my husband's contributions to our shared savings almost ceased, and in reality, I was covering all living expenses. My husband seemed indifferent to this fact, covering gifts for our son from the shared savings, while his allowance came from his part-time income. My husband seemed to be self-sufficient in managing money, showing no intention of contributing to the household. My father-in-law passed away a few years ago, and last year, my mother-in-law also left this world. Although their inheritance was divided, it wasn't much in reality. If my husband continues spending at this rate, our funds will eventually run out, sooner or later. Our son also wishes to go to college, which will require tuition fees. Facing such financial conditions, I felt a deep anxiety about how we would manage in the future. At that time, our son wanted an expensive watch for his birthday, costing several $1,000s. Clearly, a high school student doesn't need such an expensive item. Yet, my husband said, "That's great. Then, how about Dad buys one too and we both wear the same brand?" I couldn't stand it anymore and spoke out strongly. Look at reality. A high school student doesn't need such expensive items, and you need to start saving. We can't afford to make such purchases. When I got angry, my husband was shocked and became furious. "What did you say? You're just a wife. Don't get cocky." Our son agreed with my husband's opinion, saying, "That's right. You're just a pet pig." As our son began to mock me, my husband joined in, laughing. "You look just like an unsightly pig." "Hey, Dad, what should we do with such a pig? She doesn't earn much anyway. Indeed, we should kick out a pig that brings in little income from the house." This is how my husband and son insulted me. I had reached my breaking point. Why should I endure such treatment? I decided to leave the house with my belongings. The rest is up to them. They won't manage well without me. As I was packing, my husband and son mocked me, saying, "Good riddance to the noisy one." I didn't argue back, just silently packed my things and left the house. For the night, I stayed at a hotel and withdrew my share of the money from the bank the next morning. It was the money I had contributed to our joint account over the years. A week later, I received an angry call from my husband. I was busy, but I didn't want it to affect my work, so I reluctantly answered. "Hey, why did you withdraw money from the account? Return the money, thief." My husband was screaming, but that money was all earned by me. "It seems you're mistaken, but the funds in the joint account are not solely yours. I have been contributing my earnings every month. I withdrew my share because I didn't want it to be spent without my consent. So, the remaining amount is equivalent to what you have contributed. If nothing is left, it means you have spent all of your savings. That is, Nicole, come back." Upon hearing those words, I ended the call. Then, I immediately blocked his number. They should learn the hard way what it's like without me. For a year, I didn't return home. During that time, my husband and son contacted me numerous times. Months passed, and it seemed that my husband's part-time income was not enough to sustain their lives. Realizing their dire situation, our son demanded the truth from my husband. Eventually, my husband confessed, and since then, they had been struggling to bring me back home. I rented an apartment close to my workplace and focused on my job. As a result, I was able to lead a significant project to success. A year passed quickly as I concentrated on my work, and feeling it was time to settle things with my husband and son, I agreed to meet them. It was the moment for a final decision regarding our past relationship. When we finally met, the condition of my husband and son was pitiful. They appeared before me in a deteriorated state, their clothes ragged, hair unkempt, and it was clear they were not leading a healthy lifestyle. Since the last time I saw them, they had lost a noticeable amount of weight in a state that couldn't be considered healthy. During this time, I managed to regain my health due to the change in my living situation, losing about 22 pounds in a year and returning to my slim figure. Without making significant changes to my diet, merely putting mental distance between myself and my husband and son greatly reduced my stress. Additionally, incorporating moderate exercise into my lifestyle contributed significantly to my weight loss. My husband earnestly pleaded for me to return, but his plea did not move my heart. "Please, come back." As he begged on his knees, I responded calmly. "Such worthless pleading? What could it possibly mean? It's useless to do such a thing. I came here today to formally request a divorce," I stated clearly. At that moment, it seemed as if the color drained from the faces of my husband and son. "Wait. If we get divorced, we'll truly be left with nowhere to go," my husband pleaded desperately. Our son also said, "Yeah, I've already sold all my branded stuff for lunch money. I can't stand this poverty any longer," appealing to the severity of our current situation. However, I had already made my decision and was ready to start a new life away from my husband and son. "I have no obligation to you. You ignored me and treated me like a servant. I'm fed up with both of you. I've decided to eliminate you from my life, so I'm cutting ties completely." Our son suddenly seemed to realize something and argued back. "Then, you should pay child support. If you're divorcing Dad, you should be the one to pay." My husband agreed with our son, intensifying their demand. "That's right. Since you're the one earning, you should pay child support. Then we can agree to the divorce." They seemed to think they had played a clever hand. However, my husband and son were overlooking a crucial fact. "Actually, I'm not obligated to pay you any child support." "What? Max, you're not biologically related to me." Our son looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "Max, you are a child of his previous wife. Shortly after you were born, your biological mother disappeared and you were raised by your grandparents. I married your father when you were 2 years old. So, we have no blood relation, and I have no obligation to pay child support after the divorce." "I see. Despite that, I have loved and cared for you as my own child, but I can't take it anymore. I'm ending my marriage with this man, severing ties with you, and we're going back to being complete strangers." My declaration seemed to shock our son and husband, leaving them visibly pale. "I want you to sign the divorce papers immediately, but if that's difficult, I'll have to hire a lawyer and possibly take this to court." "Court? We can't afford that." "Then sign the divorce papers." My husband reluctantly signed the divorce papers. Afterward, I submitted the divorce documents to the city hall, and the divorce from my husband was officially finalized. My ex-husband is now juggling multiple part-time jobs, exhaustedly supporting both his son's education and their livelihood. However, due to the shock of the truth about his lies and the fact that I wasn't their biological mother, our son harbors strong resentment towards him, and their relationship has significantly deteriorated. I still receive messages from them asking for help, but I ignore them. I hope our son takes this opportunity to reflect on himself and improve his character. As for my ex-husband, even if he suffers from the consequences of his actions, I feel nothing. With these thoughts, I continue to immerse myself in my work today. For the foreseeable future, I plan to focus more on achieving results at work than on love or marriage. My name is Dorothy. I am 68 years old this year. At the end of last year, my husband, with whom I lived, suddenly passed away from cancer, and I had to move in with my eldest son, John, on short notice. Originally, my husband and I lived in the house where John and his family now reside. However, when John started his own family and had a child, we moved to a small one-room apartment nearby and gave them the house. We tried to be considerate in our own way. John runs his own business and couldn't get a mortgage due to his unstable income, so my husband decided to give them the house, thinking about the future of our grandchildren. When we handed over the house, we renovated the interior to make it as good as new. John was blessed with 3 children afterward, and we maintained a good relationship, playing with our grandchildren occasionally, and dining together at a nearby restaurant on birthdays. But when my husband was diagnosed with cancer and it was too late for treatment, he contacted John, concerned about my future, and said, "After I'm gone, please take care of Mother. Live with her." My husband asked John to live with me. I told my husband not to worry, as I was still healthy and could live alone, but he wouldn't accept it. He was worried about leaving me alone. John respected his father's last wish and accepted living with me. In fact, since we gave the house to John, I had never set foot in it. Thinking that John's wife, Cindy, might mind, I refrained from visiting their house. Therefore, I encountered an unexpected sight when I arrived at the house. To avoid being a burden, I moved to John's house with minimal luggage. The house was originally a modest 4-room house, with 3 rooms upstairs and 1 downstairs. John came out of the house and said, "Was today the moving day?" He seemed surprised. He's always been forgetful, and that hasn't changed even as an adult. As I entered the house, I saw a mountain of shoes and a strange smell wafting from inside. The exterior looked normal, so I was shocked. John seemed unconcerned and muttered, "Dad said so, so I accepted it. But honestly, there's no place for you to live here, Mom," as he walked inside. Reluctantly, I took off my shoes and entered the house, where I found the room on the first floor overflowing with items. The living and dining rooms I was shown were also glittered with shopping bags and trash, leaving no place to stand. It was like the trash houses I had seen on TV, and I was astonished. Despite its clean exterior, the inside was like a different world in its filthiness. When Cindy, John's wife, noticed my arrival, she got up from the sofa. "Mother, since there's no place to lay out a mattress, please find somewhere appropriate. I'm too tired from work to prepare anything," she said before lying down again. She runs a beauty salon and, according to John, makes a substantial income. As I looked at John, he said, "I'm tired from work too. Why don't you organize the room yourself and make some space?" And then he went upstairs. With no choice, I moved the items from the room to the hallway, only for Cindy to yell, "Hey, don't put things in the hallway, they're in the way." I quickly apologized and arranged them, to which she said, "It's fine to tidy up, but don't throw anything away without asking," and returned to the living room. I managed to clear a small space. I was utterly exhausted from tidying up the heavily cluttered room. Then Cindy said, "Mother, can't you at least help with preparing the meal? I'm not your maid." I responded, "Oh, it's already time for dinner, isn't it?" I got carried away with cleaning and lost track of time, and hurried to the kitchen. I was so engrossed in tidying up the room that I lost track of time. The kitchen was littered with food waste, but Cindy was busily frying a large amount of meat. When I asked if there was anything I could help with, she pointed to the dishes and said, "Can you do the washing up?" She then added in a low voice, "I was hoping that you'd consider ordering pizza or something since you suddenly came to stay with us." Pondering over her words and my own sense of propriety, I decided not to argue and replied with a smile, "Sorry about that. I was a bit busy today, but how about we order pizza tomorrow?" Cindy's mood improved and she smiled. "That sounds good. Let's do that tomorrow." I reminded myself that the mess in the house was understandable given they had 3 children, and Cindy herself worked as a beautician and manager. I realized I needed to change my mindset to adapt to living there. That evening's dinner was just a lot of grilled meat and potatoes, with no other vegetables or soup prepared. Surprisingly, despite living in a dirty house, Cindy was very particular about clothing. She would always wash clothes and towels after just one use and strictly instructed her children not to get dirty. As a result, the whole family always looked presentable when going out, and they never realized the state of the house until now. From the next day, I devoted myself to cleaning. I neatly arranged items that were unclear whether they were trash or not, and sought confirmation from Cindy when she returned from work. Due to the large amount of trash, she eventually started to respond with a disinterested, "It's okay, just throw it away," when I asked for confirmation daily. I hesitated to touch other people's things, but it was hard to see the house I once lived in so dirty and with no walking space. After a month, the trash was finally cleared and the house became orderly. With walking space now available, the house looked significantly cleaner. The grandchildren were delighted, playing on the carpet and saying, "It's like the house we see on TV." Their habit of throwing half-eaten snacks on the floor also disappeared. Though John and Cindy never thanked me, I didn't mind as I did it willingly. But I didn't know that my cleaning was actually being seen as a nuisance. Far from being grateful, Cindy felt offended by my actions, saying, "What's this, sarcasm? A mother-in-law's check." No one complained or asked for it. I accidentally overheard this during a late-night trip to the bathroom while John and Cindy were having a drink. John said, "If it weren't for Dad's words, we wouldn't have taken her in, who lives on a pension." His words were in full support of Cindy. Hearing this directly made me very sad. Wondering if there was something wrong with the way I raised him, I returned to my room unnoticed. I felt pathetic sleeping in a dark, small space surrounded by my belongings. However, thinking of my grandchildren who grew up in an unclean environment, I convinced myself that my actions were right and fell asleep. After that, whenever I cleaned, Cindy would quietly leave somewhere. Unable to bear always having meat and potatoes for meals, I proposed to Cindy, "Would it be okay if I made a stew next time? Considering my age, I need vegetables." She hysterically placed the dishes down and coldly replied, "Do as you like, but arrange the ingredients yourself." It seemed I had angered her. From then on, she left all cooking to me and stopped entering the kitchen. The grandchildren, likely deficient in vitamins, ate vegetables and fruits, saying, "It's so delicious." They started to become affectionate, asking, "Grandma, put a fried egg on the curry?" "Me too, me too." One night, when Cindy was late due to a drinking party, the grandchildren came to my mattress and slept with me. Since then, even when their parents were home, they started sleeping with me. This probably irritated Cindy even more. Having the children become attached to their grandmother might not have been pleasant for her. Eventually, I ended up preparing all the meals. About half a year after that, the summer holidays began, and the family started planning a vacation. Without saying anything to me, John and Cindy, along with the children, were looking at brochures and searching online. It was clear from their behavior and attitude that they had no intention of taking me with them. Honestly, even if they did, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I decided to enjoy my role in taking care of the house in their absence. However, my eldest grandchild suddenly asked, "Grandma is coming too, right?" The expressions of John and Cindy were complicated, but as the grandchild insisted on my joining, it was decided that I would go along. Cindy, seemingly displeased, said, "Since we'll go early, please prepare everyone's breakfast and do the laundry. It's only natural since we're taking you." Therefore, I woke up at 4 a.m. to prepare the meals and do the laundry. On the car journey, I needed frequent bathroom breaks due to my age, and whenever we entered the highway, I had to ask, "Sorry, could we stop for a break?" Several times. John and Cindy, eager to reach the destination, could barely hide their irritation at the crowded rest stops. The grandchild who wanted me to come also became impatient, saying, "Let's go quickly." John scolded, "It's your fault." which startled the grandchild into crying loudly. With the added traffic congestion, the mood in the car worsened, and Cindy kept complaining, "We spent so much money for this, and it's terrible." It was hard enough for me to get a break. Upon reaching the amusement park, I said, "I'll wait at the cafe while everyone enjoys themselves," and distanced myself. After the children regained their spirits and ran off to the playgrounds, Cindy returned and said, "Please pay for your own expenses," adding another layer of discomfort. With no facilities for the elderly at the amusement park and the cafe getting crowded, I decided to sit on a bench outside. I had taken precautions against the sun, but the summer heat was intense, and the next thing I knew, I was in the amusement park's medical room. I overheard a doctor-like person scolding John and Cindy, saying, "How could you neglect an elderly person like this?" It seemed I had a mild heat stroke. The early morning lunch preparation, laundry, and long car ride seemed to have affected my poor health. John and Cindy, looking annoyed, took me back to the hotel. After checking in, they led me to my room, saying, "Please don't cause any more trouble, and we really shouldn't have brought you. We're going out for the night, so eat something before leaving for the amusement park again." Feeling dizzy, I laid myself down. Alone in the quiet hotel, I began to question what I was doing. Usually, I was busy caring for my grandchildren and doing housework without much time to think. The vacation planning lacked consideration for me, and no one cared that I fell ill after being overwhelmed with early morning tasks. I was lying down there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was right. I thought that if I were to collapse in the future, they would probably neglect me just as they had now. Even though I did housework, I was treated as a nuisance. As a mother who had given birth to a son, I realized that I had been harboring expectations, but that was a mistake. I fell asleep pondering whether I should make a decision. Later on, around 6 p.m., I heard my grandchildren's voices asking, "Grandma, are you okay?" They seemed to have returned early from the amusement park because they were worried about me. John and Cindy were whispering in the background, sounding displeased. Cindy then said, "Kids, go outside. I'll talk to her and let the children go out to the hotel's playground." Then Cindy began, "Mother, please stop. Don't you think it's extravagant for an elderly person to travel? Shouldn't someone living on a pension stay home and clean? You're good at cleaning, right?" she said accusingly. The trip was planned for 2 nights and 3 days, and we were supposed to go back to the amusement park the next day. The final day was scheduled for a trick art exhibition and a museum tour, which I thought I could participate in. However, when I asked, "Do I have to leave right now?" John replied irritably, "What else is there?" He vented, "What am I supposed to do now? The plans are ruined. Honestly, I only took you in because of Dad's will, but I can't stand the idea of you having fun for free." Those words solidified the vague decision I had in my mind. I realized I should sever ties with them. I stood up and said I understand, gathered my belongings, went to the front desk, and asked for a taxi. When my grandchildren noticed me, I thought of it as a final farewell and said, "Grandma isn't feeling well, so I'm going home early. You guys have fun," and patted their heads. They seemed to sense something was wrong but couldn't articulate it and just said, "Get well soon," with a smile. I got into the taxi, gave the driver my home address, and he expressed concern about the long-distance fare. I showed him my platinum card and said, "I'll pay with this." He thanked me and started driving quietly to avoid making me feel sick. Upon arriving home, I immediately began cleaning. This time, the cleaning seemed to be quite extensive. The condominium I used to live in was up for rent, but fortunately, no tenant had been found yet, so I was able to return right away. The next day, I packed my things, left John and Cindy's house, and contacted a real estate agent. I said, "I want to let go of that house." After a week, John, apparently having trouble with the real estate agent who came for the appraisal, called me furiously. I visited their house and quietly said, "I've decided to end our relationship here. That's why I'm selling this house. It's essential to discard unnecessary things when cleaning, after all." John and Cindy looked puzzled. "This is Dad's house, right?" It all became mine through inheritance. John argued. Cindy, in a fit of anger, said, "Exactly. This is my husband's property. What are you doing on your own?" Sighing, I asked, "You inherited it, but do you remember changing the house's title?" John replied, "I don't remember, but I thought it automatically became mine. That's not the case. This house is in my name." I explained, and they looked shocked. "What do you mean?" they asked. "That's what I mean. Also, this marks the end of the financial aid to your company," I declared. "Financial aid? Was I getting loans from you, Mom?" John was astonished. I knew about John's forgetfulness, but I didn't expect it to be this severe. "Have you forgotten? We deposited funds into your account every month for your business. We had a contract for that," I explained. John turned pale. "I thought that money was earned by Cindy," he said, looking dumbfounded. Cindy also looked shocked, confronting John. "You thought that money was earned by me? I thought it was yours." Initially, when John was struggling for funds in his early marriage, I decided to invest in his business for the sake of my grandchildren. To avoid it being seen as inheritance, I set up a personal asset management company for the investment. I had explained this clearly to John, but it seemed he mistook it for Cindy's income. Our company's name coincidentally resembled that of Cindy's beauty salon, causing the confusion. Suddenly, John asked, "Wait a minute. You mean the investments continued even after Dad passed away? Isn't that Dad's company?" "I am the president of that company," I said. He looked at me as if he couldn't believe it. Cindy, too, was agape with astonishment. "For the sake of your father's honor," I kept silent, but actually, that asset was mine. "My parents were wealthy," I revealed calmly. "We had married against my parents' wishes, almost like eloping." John had never met my grandparents, but as time passed, we reconciled. When they passed away, I inherited their assets. This was a distinct property, not part of the communal assets with my husband, but my personal property. "Wait, so Dad didn't own it?" John asked, stunned. "Right, as I've said multiple times, Dad didn't leave much inheritance," I explained. It might have been natural for John and Cindy to assume it was his dad's inheritance from a general perspective. However, their belief that they received the inheritance without any formalities showed a lack of thought on John's part as a son. Originally, John started his own business because he was fired from every company he worked at. "Nobody understands my talent," he would rant. We were puzzled about how to support him. Not wanting him to squander the inheritance on frivolities, we provided him with capital and loans. John, misunderstanding it as Cindy's income, had exhausted it on living expenses and business funds. Cindy's beauty salon wasn't doing well either, and her income was minimal. Yet, she seemed to be relying on John's supposed income. I thought I would inherit this house. I just followed Dad's instructions. John expressed his anger. "Wait, this house isn't in your name? I thought it was already bought because it was renovated." Cindy was furious. Disappointed by their attitudes, I said, "From now on, manage your affairs by yourselves," and prepared to leave. At that moment, Cindy grabbed my shoulder tightly and said with a mix of anger and anxiety, "Wait a minute. Don't you care about your cute grandchildren? What about us?" Using grandchildren as a threat? "How low can you go?" I firmly said, "You can't choose your parents. Maybe there were problems with the way I raised you, but I'm done coddling. That's best for the grandchildren too," and I left the scene. Behind me, I could hear John and Cindy raising their voices. John said, "It's your fault." And Cindy retorted, "What are you talking about? You're to blame too." Eventually, the house was sold and John's business failed due to a lack of funds, leading to their divorce. They gave up custody, and I ended up taking care of the grandchildren. John and Cindy then became incommunicado, and I have no idea where they are or what they're doing now. Under my guidance, the grandchildren learned valuable household skills. The eldest learned to cook, the middle child mastered cleaning, and the youngest got good at organizing. They are learning the importance of handling their affairs themselves. Now, they collaborate and complete the housework without my intervention. They will live their lives learning from their parents' failures. I am happy that I could teach my grandchildren important values. Balancing their studies and housework, they also take care of me, and we are living peaceful days now. I'll hand over the house to my parents. If you resist, I'll divorce you. I wonder what this person was talking about. Daniel was smiling as he spoke to me, who was sunk in sorrow after losing my mother. Hearing him, I realized that my love for him had vanished. Instead, anger towards him and my in-laws welled up in me. Fine, but you'll regret it. Shut up. Fools should keep quiet. He didn't seem to take my words seriously, handing me the completed divorce papers while laughing. If he was serious, I needed to show my seriousness too. I would make him regret underestimating me. Smirking, I took the divorce papers and left the house. I headed to my uncle's house. The next day, I went with my uncle to the luxurious house occupied by my in-laws. Where were you yesterday? It's not okay for a maid to just disappear. Maid? Who are you talking about? Who else but you? You're the wife. Actually, we're already legally divorced. Daniel was confused by my reply. Seeing this, my uncle started to speak. I have some legal advice to seek about this matter. I, Gina Simpson, am a 35-year-old part-time housewife. I don't have a father. He died in an accident when I was young. So, my mother raised me alone. She had a talent for business and built a large company by herself. Because I'm a single mother, I don't want you to suffer financially, Gina. I have to live long for both you and your father. Mother always said that, dedicating herself to her business. As a result, there were no financial worries. Sis, Gina, I came to see you since I'm in the area for work. Oh, thank you for your hard work even on your day off. Yes. Oh, where's that heavy package you said was hard to carry? I'll help with that too. Additionally, my uncle, my mother's brother, supported us despite his busy work. However, our family had rules. Take care of yourself. Earn what you want through your own efforts. Mom, I want something, so can I get a part-time job? Of course. What do you want? There's a book I need for a qualification I want to take in the future. Oh, Gina, you're really admirable. Therefore, I always spared no effort. My mother always praised me for that. As a result, I eventually played an important role at the company. I fell for you the first time I met you, and I was increasingly drawn to your hardworking nature. I met my husband, Daniel, at the company. He persistently approached me, and I was gradually drawn to his passionate attitude, leading to marriage. We don't have children yet and lead a typical life. One day, work meetings ran late, and I came home after working overtime. Finally back? I'm hungry, so hurry up and serve dinner. When I arrived home, Daniel was lounging on the sofa with his smartphone, not even greeting me. Sighing in frustration at his attitude, I said, I messaged you that I'd be late today, so you should eat first, right? Oh, did you? I sent it, and you even replied, got it. Then hurry up with dinner. Saying that, he laid himself back on the sofa as usual. Unlike me, he doesn't hold a special position. He's a typical employee. That's why I wanted him to help with the housework, but he always ignored it. He leaves his clothes on the floor and doesn't clean up after meals. He used to be considerate and help with housework in the early days of our marriage. Hey, I just returned tired from work. Compared to that, you're just relaxing on the sofa, so at least prepare your own meal. Stop nagging. You're just a failure at infertility treatment. I felt outraged by his words. It's true we don't have children, but it's not solely my fault. We both have difficulty conceiving. That's the same for you. It's your fault. We don't have kids because your body is faulty. Yet, Daniel blames everything on me. He probably feels his pride hurt as I hold a position while his career stagnates. In other words, jealousy and spite. That's a separate issue. What about you, who does neither housework nor work properly? What? Are you mocking me? That day, we had a big fight. Angry, Daniel went to bed without eating anything. His attitude confused me. Considering all my efforts, I couldn't understand Daniel's behavior. What should I do? While heating up the food in the fridge, I muttered to myself. The next morning, on a rare day off with no plans, I woke up a bit later than usual. Daniel. He's not here. I couldn't see Daniel, who usually sleeps until noon. He must have gone to his parents' house. With that thought, I got ready and headed to the hospital. Mom, hello. Oh, Gina. You're off today? Yes. How are you feeling? Well, as usual. My mother collapsed at work around that time and was then hospitalized. Knowing her, she must have felt ill before collapsing but continued to work, leading to her current state. Even then, she was working on her laptop in her hospital bed despite not feeling well. How about you? No problems. I smiled in response to her worried question. I didn't want to worry her further. By the way, the maple trees near the company are beautiful again this year. I took some photos. Want to see? Yes, show me. Changing the topic, I showed her the pictures. After a pleasant conversation with her, I left the hospital. I have a message from my mother-in-law. Checking my phone, there was a message from Daniel's mother. Reluctantly, I decided to respond. It's about time. Where have you been? I was at my mother's hospital. What? Prioritizing your own parent over your husband is unacceptable. I felt irritated by the shouting voice coming from the phone. As expected, Daniel had gone to his parents' house. Her complaints continued. Why do you trouble Daniel? As a wife, you should respect your husband. Are you getting carried away because of your position? And you don't even have children due to infertility. I wish he would become independent. Daniel always runs quickly to his parents' protection. It's really pathetic. Thinking this, I responded vaguely and ended the call. What's wrong, Gina? You look upset. Oh, uncle. Are you here to visit mom too? Something like that. My uncle, who had been watching from somewhere, approached me. Behind him stood a man. Uncle, is that gentleman a work acquaintance? Yes, he might be involved in something that affects you, so I'll introduce you. I'm James Miller. Pleased to meet you. He handed me his business card and I gave him mine. Then my uncle said, I have something to discuss with my niece, so could you go ahead to the hospital? What was the call about? It was from my mother-in-law. I explained the situation with a wry smile. Daniel neglects housework and runs to his parents' house at the slightest conflict. And his mother defends him and blames me for being infertile. Hearing my story, my uncle looked troubled. I want to keep this from mom. I don't want to worry her more. Understood. My uncle nodded, looking somewhat distressed, and I parted ways with him. Then it happened shortly after. What, Mom? When I rushed to the hospital after hearing my mother's condition had worsened, she had already passed away. Stunned by the sudden loss, I stood there in a daze. Unable to think of anything, my uncle supported me and even arranged the funeral. We did it. Now the inheritance is ours. Really? She was the CEO of a major company, right? How many millions in inheritance is there, I wonder? The wife's inheritance belongs to the husband's family. We can say goodbye to that shabby house. The laughter, inappropriate for the occasion, snapped me back to reality. I heard Daniel and his parents laughing and talking loudly at the funeral. Everyone, please leave. My uncle, seeing me frozen and disturbed by their words, kicked them out of the funeral. Though Daniel and his parents tried to resist, they left the funeral venue, criticizing my uncle, under the cold stares of those around. Gina, if you ever want to cut ties with them, just let me know. Thank you. Afterward, unable to bring myself to return to Daniel's house, I decided to stay in my mother's grand mansion for a while. The house, built with love by my mother, was filled with many memories. Planting flowers in the garden for my mother's comfort, playing hide and seek in this large house on weekends. Even though my mother was busy with work, she always valued our time together. Being in the house reminds me of such happy days. Feel free to use this house when I'm gone. My mother had said that during her lifetime. As I considered making the house my own, the doorbell rang. It could be my uncle, worried and coming to check on me. Since my childhood, my uncle often visited without notice, so I opened the front door. So you were here after all, Daniel. And, wow, what a fabulous house. Wait a minute. The unexpected visitors were Daniel and his parents. Confused by their unanticipated arrival, they entered the mansion. They even brought moving boxes, one after another being brought inside. What are you doing? This is my mother's house. But your mother is gone now. Right now, this is my house. No, this house is in my parents' name. I was shocked by his words. Why was my mother's inheritance in his parents' name? A lawyer friend of ours changed the ownership. What? How could you do this without permission? Quiet down. A wife's belongings belong to her husband's family. Don't worry, you can work here as a maid. Daniel said this mockingly. I'll hand over the house to my parents. If you resist, I'll divorce you. Daniel could say such things without a care. He said this to me, who was mourning my only mother, with a laughter. And then, I realized I no longer felt any love for him. Instead, anger towards Daniel and his parents welled up in me. Fine, but you'll regret it. Quiet fool. He seemed not to take my words seriously, handing me the completed divorce papers with a laugh. If he was serious, then it was time for me to be serious too. I needed to make him regret underestimating me. Smiling, I took the divorce papers and left the house. My destination was my uncle's house. What an insult. I've been taken for a fool. I immediately consulted my uncle, who is a lawyer. Changing ownership like that is not allowed legally. It's an impossible act. Yet, he had a lawyer do such a thing. Don't worry, I'll protect your mother's house. And you, Gina. That's what my uncle told me. We immediately took action. My sorrow over losing my mother had completely turned into anger towards them. I could never forgive that unreasonable family. The next day, I went with my uncle to the mansion they were occupying. Where were you yesterday? It's not okay for a maid to just disappear. Maid? Who are you talking about? Who else but you, the wife? Actually, we're already legally divorced, I said calmly, and Daniel's expression froze in shock. He was at a loss for words, unable to believe it. Then my uncle spoke. I have something to discuss with you as a lawyer. My uncle looked at Daniel coldly. I had quickly filled out the divorce papers I received the day before and completed the legal procedures. Informing Daniel of this fact, he was clearly bewildered. His face showed an inability to comprehend the situation. What's happening? Daniel's parents asked, increasing the tension. My uncle calmly intervened to resolve the situation. His voice was composed, carrying the weight of a lawyer. We need to discuss this situation from a legal perspective, he said, gazing intently at Daniel. My uncle explained that I was the legal owner of the house and spoke in detail about the illegality of changing the ownership. Changing the ownership of this house illegally is prohibited by law. Daniel's parents tried to argue. That was done by a lawyer we know. So it can't be illegal. Could you please give me the name of the lawyer? This case may constitute a clear case of forgery of private documents. My uncle's question carried a legal seriousness. At this moment, Daniel lashed out at me. What are you doing on your own? I responded calmly. The one who started this without permission is you, isn't it? I haven't done anything against the law. I can call the police. Daniel had nothing to reply and remained silent. His silence made me understand why he couldn't succeed in his career. That infertile woman. His words were weak. I confidently retorted. You say that, but I think I'm better off than you. In reality, I still have a chance to conceive. Whereas I have a hope of pregnancy through treatment. Daniel has been told by doctors that it's difficult for him to have children. I still have a chance to have children, but you don't. You can't have children, can you? Such audacity. You have insulted the precious memories I had with my dear mother, and I will never forgive that. As I looked straight into Daniel's eyes, he hung his head. My uncle had also demanded silence from his parents. Leave this house immediately, and be prepared for what's to come. Under our cold gaze, they trembled. They had trampled on the precious home of my mother and me, and they needed to pay the price. My sister knew about the situation you were in. It seemed my mother had sensed my troubles and asked my uncle to help me. She probably won't tell me anything to avoid worrying me, so please help her in my stead. I heard these words from my uncle. It turned out that after my mother's death, Daniel had been bragging about getting his hands on the inheritance. My mother had prepared a will to protect her estate, and that will had been entrusted to James Miller, the lawyer introduced by my uncle. This will clearly states everything. All the inheritance is left to Gina, and she is free to use the mansion as she wishes. That was what was written in the will kept by James. Seeing this, Daniel was shocked and started clinging to me. Please. I've already sold our house and even let go of my parents' home. Why would you do such a thing? Well, actually, it was revealed that Daniel had accumulated a huge debt without my knowledge. He had been frequently visiting nightclubs and spending lavishly while I was busy working. To repay that debt, he had even sold his own house and his parents' home. That's your problem. But Gina, we are husband and wife, right? We are no longer a couple. You have two choices: face charges for forgery or buy the mansion for $3 million. That's impossible. Daniel had just managed to pay off his debts by selling his house and certainly couldn't afford $3 million. His parents were also unable to come up with that amount. Seeing this, I decided to file a police report. Moreover, when I returned to the mansion, I noticed some items were missing. My precious mementos are gone. What is the meaning of this? I confronted Daniel, who replied, "It's not my fault. Mom was planning to sell everything she didn't like." Apparently, his parents had been selling things without my knowledge. This was another case to add to the lawsuit. As a result, Daniel and his parents ended up with massive debts. Of course, they were completely cut off from the company I managed, now led by me, following my mother's footsteps. Amidst all this, Daniel's father shouted, "Bring out that damn daughter-in-law," as he stormed into the company alone. He demanded the withdrawal of the police report and made a scene, eventually being taken away by the police. My uncle and I could only chuckle at this hopeless parent and child. We found out who that lawyer is. He turned out to be Daniel's cousin. Daniel had tried to make me the villain and had forced his cousin to cooperate by exploiting his weaknesses. The cousin, having lost his lawyer license due to the fiasco, harbored resentment against Daniel's family, spreading the word that he had been deceived, leading to their isolation. As a result, I heard Daniel's family was then in a whirlwind of chaos. Seems like a family with a lot of problems. I certainly think so. If they both fail by pulling each other down, that's fine by me. I have no more sympathy for them. So, what are you planning to do with the mansion? Yes, I've decided to sell it. The mansion certainly held dear memories of my mother, but it had been tarnished by Daniel's family. Besides, it was too big for me to live in alone. My uncle said this, supporting my decision, and so I proceeded with the sale of the mansion. Fortunately, a wealthy elderly couple expressed their desire to buy it immediately. I etched the memories of my mother in my heart and decided to leave the mansion. My new life would be in a condo close to the company. Gina, oh James. I heard from a colleague and ended up coming here. As I was leaving the office, there stood James. He had been a great help in investigating Daniel's family and gathering evidence. Gradually, we grew closer, influenced by my uncle calling us casually. Would you like to have some coffee together? Of course, let's go, I agreed, and we headed to a nearby cafe. I'm truly grateful for all the help you've given me, including with my mother's situation. No, I wanted to be of help to you, Gina, James said, looking at me earnestly. His sudden gaze stirred my heart, but I met his eyes. Actually, I have feelings for you, Gina. Really? I know you just finished with Daniel, and you might not have sorted out your feelings yet, but please consider it when you're ready. While saying this, he handed me his contact information. I had been aware of his feelings for a while but never saw him in that light. However, now his feelings resonated with me. I'm serious about this. When he said this, blushing, I found him endearing. I began to think that maybe starting life anew with someone wasn't such a bad idea. Later, Daniel's parents mistook that I was still in the mansion and tried to enter without permission. But the mansion had already been sold to new owners, and they were quickly caught by the advanced security system. Eventually, they received a prison sentence due to their criminal record. Help me, Gina. I was shocked by the sudden contact from Daniel. I had forgotten to block his number. Such a foolish oversight. Apparently, only Daniel's parents were caught for the break-in, and Daniel had escaped by seeking help elsewhere. However, Daniel was burdened with an overwhelming debt. But we were once married. I'm appalled at my lack of judgment. I've learned not to be swayed by you. It's time to move on to a new path. Anything else? Gina, let's get back together. Sorry, but that's impossible. Goodbye. After hanging up, I made sure to block Daniel's number. Is everything finished? Yes, it's all over now. Afterward, I decided to respond to James's feelings. Now, we are engaged. My uncle encouraged me, saying, he's truly sincere. Hey, James, I have difficulty conceiving and considering my age. Gina, having you is all that matters to me. Family isn't just about blood relations. His words made me believe that together, we could build a happy family. Then, I talked to my uncle about everything, the situation with Daniel, my relationship with James, and about children. I see. If that's your decision, then it's good. Why do you always support me, Uncle? That's because of a promise with your father. My uncle explained that my father and he were close friends and always cared for our family. That's why I decided to protect you. I see. You're like a daughter to me, my uncle said with a smile, and I smiled genuinely. I was truly grateful to have him on my side. Be happy. Yes, I definitely will. I vowed to build a happy future, honoring this promise with my uncle. I didn't want to make him worry about me anymore. Afterward, I married James and enjoyed a happy life together. We decided to adopt a child. This child is truly my grandchild, said my uncle, showing warm affection for the child. I am pouring the same love into my child that I received from my mother. He's our child. We'll be okay no matter what happens. Yes, there may be challenges in life ahead, but together, we will surely overcome them. I promise to pass on the lessons I learned from my mother, be a supportive figure like my uncle, and convey pure emotions to my child like James. This house, it's been transferred to our eldest son and his wife. Strangers should leave immediately. Despite the fact that I was bearing the burden of the house mortgage, I received shocking statements from my in-laws and husband. From the beginning, they had been using me with the intent to make me pay off the mortgage. When I learned this truth, my heart rapidly shifted from gratitude to anger. Well then, I'll be moving out. To their mocking words, I responded with a defiant smile. I will make them regret ever challenging me. Immediately, I sought help from an acquaintance and began plotting my revenge against them. My name is Michelle Anderson. I'm a 48-year-old lawyer working at a law firm. Currently, I'm living while taking care of my husband and his parents. It all started when I gave a house to my in-laws. I married James when I was 30. When our marriage was decided, my father-in-law was involved in an accident and injured his leg. He couldn't stand on his own and had to live in a wheelchair. My mother-in-law was also elderly and needed care, so I gave them a barrier-free house. Initially, we considered living in public housing, but then we decided to move them to a location midway between my husband's workplace and mine. This was my suggestion so we could reach them quickly in case of any emergency. I received a lot of help from the Anderson family regarding my father. "Please let me return the favor," I said. My father passed away before I got married. Just before he died, he had accumulated a lot of debt, putting our family finances in a very tight spot. We struggled, piling up more debt to pay off the existing ones. My husband and his family were the ones who saved us from this difficult situation. James and his parents paid off my father's debts on our behalf. If you're hesitating to marry because of the debt, wouldn't it be solved if we paid it off? My parents think the same way, said James. That's right. It's debt from a business failure, not from frivolous spending. There's every reason to help, added my mother-in-law. That's right. We should help each other out in tough times. There's nothing to be ashamed of, said my father-in-law. Thus, they supported most of the debt without saying anything. Both my father and I expressed our gratitude through tears, and I desperately took the bar exam. The total amount borrowed from my husband's family was about $50,000. I was confident that I could repay the debt once I succeeded as a lawyer. I didn't want to carry the debt as a perpetual burden. My ultimate goal was to pass the bar exam and become a lawyer. With a firm vow to repay the money I borrowed from my in-laws, I continued to work hard to become a lawyer. With that strong determination, I immersed myself in studies and, as a result of tremendous effort, finally passed the bar exam. My father and in-laws celebrated my success, and my heart was filled with immense joy. To start my career in the legal field, I quickly found a job and began working at a law firm. The director was very kind, and I learned a lot from experienced senior lawyers, gradually honing my skills. Over time, I acquired exclusive clients and now hold an important position in the office as a female lawyer earning over $100,000 a year. Thanks to my professional success, I was able to completely repay the debt to my father and in-laws. However, after my mother passed away, my father soon left this world too, and I was left alone. That's when James proposed to me. "You're a strong woman who can stand on your own. But I want to be the man who supports you. I will always cherish you, so please consider marrying me." Convinced by his words, we decided to marry, expecting a happy life to begin. At that time, my father-in-law was unfortunately involved in an accident. Grateful for their past kindness, I offered to build a new barrier-free house for them, despite their objections. The gratitude I feel is more than words can express. Please, do not hesitate. I want you all to live comfortably. It was a sincere wish. I conveyed my earnest feelings, not just flattery. My enthusiasm reached them, and with a wry smile, my in-laws accepted my offer. However, right after agreeing, they added a condition. "Michelle, why don't you live with us too? We heard you and your husband are looking for a new house." "That's right. If you don't mind, let's live together. Eventually, this house will belong to you." James has an older brother. He, 3 years older than me, got married and left home a few years ago. He started his own business and, due to his business, left everything at home to James, as I heard from my mother-in-law. My brother-in-law had an oral agreement that in exchange for taking care of the aging parents, James could freely use the parents' assets. Before leaving home, my brother-in-law had communicated this to James. Moving to the new house would shorten my commute, and we would start living together with James and his parents. Since we could support each other in times of need, there was no reason to refuse living together. However, I was worried that I might trouble my in-laws. Having occasionally caused them trouble even before marriage, I was anxious about whether living together was appropriate. Sensing my concerns, James gently placed his hand on my shoulder and reassured me. "Don't worry, Michelle. I'm here to support you. Let's live together with confidence." Encouraged by James' words, I agreed to live with my in-laws. I was expecting to start a new life with the four of us and have enjoyable days. However, the peaceful life I had hoped for was not the reality. "Michelle, where did you put my morning clothes?" "Michelle, the TV remote isn't responding. Can you do something about it?" "Michelle, can you help me? I want to sit on the sofa." It has already been 13 years since we started living in this house. In this house, every family member always comes to me for favors. They have no intention of managing things on their own. The family is completely dependent on me for everything, especially my father-in-law, who is disabled. He doesn't hesitate to touch me freely. "I told you I had prepared and hung up the morning clothes." "Mother, that's the air conditioner remote, not the TV remote. It's on the desk." "Father, please ask James for physical support when he's around. Please don't rely on me. I can't support you properly." I found myself replying to them daily. Initially, I suppressed my dissatisfaction and did my best to meet the family's demands. It was unthinkable that while shouldering the mortgage, all household responsibilities were also left to me. I had thought about divorce several times. However, James always skillfully managed the situation, and my in-laws would apologize. I wasn't feeling tortured or harassed, so every time they apologized, my heart wavered and I ended up choosing not to divorce. Day-to-day life was filled with the in-laws' dependence and minor frustrations. But somewhere, I felt a bond as a family, which might have made me tolerate the situation. Still, the option of divorce always flickered in my mind. My mother-in-law finally started showing signs of mild dementia, or perhaps she was just becoming forgetful. It's not clear, but such questions from her increased. James, who had promised to help before marriage, proved to be utterly unreliable in this situation. Continuing my life with these uncertainties, I gradually adapted to the environment through experience. I began to handle everything before being told and started to express my opinions clearly to James and others. However, my father-in-law's excessive behavior was something I could not overlook. I expressed my dissatisfaction not only to James but also to my mother-in-law. "I can't overlook father's behavior. Lately, he pretends to have dementia to touch me. Mother, please do something." My father-in-law has not yet been diagnosed with dementia. To be precise, he was examined, but he wasn't clearly diagnosed with dementia. The symptoms were mild, so it was a gray area whether it's dementia or not, the doctor said. "Don't say that. It's part of the illness. It can't be helped." Certainly, such behavior could occur in dementia tendencies. But normally, this happens at a more severe stage of the symptoms. Regarding my father-in-law's behavior, he was just using the word dementia as a shield to act freely. Even after the doctor said it's not dementia, my in-laws arbitrarily decided it's dementia and used it to excuse inconvenient situations. I could understand if it was really dementia, but using an illness to force others to endure is not acceptable. I consulted with James and sought a response from my in-laws. But each time, he said it was troublesome and kept postponing it. When I was about to reach my limit of patience, an unexpected event occurred. This month, the repayment is completed. I'll be freed from this suffering. On a holiday afternoon, I was organizing the household account book and my diary. Looking at the bank book, I noticed something and my face brightened. At the end of that month, the mortgage repayment for my in-laws' house would finally be completed. Filled with a sense of achievement, I felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Thinking that my burden would decrease and I would have more money to spend freely made me very happy. However, at that point, I didn't know yet that the real trial was about to begin. One evening, during a family dinner, James suddenly started talking about the mortgage being paid off. "Michelle, the mortgage for this house is going to be paid off completely this month, right?" he asked. Since he had never brought up the mortgage before, I was a bit taken aback by his sudden question. However, he poured beer into a glass from a bottle with a friendly smile. "Yes, that's right, but why all of a sudden?" I replied. "Because we have to celebrate, right? You've had a hard time, Michelle. I want to celebrate grandly as a thank you," James said. I couldn't hide my surprise at his unexpected words. I was touched that James had thought that way and understood my burden. Thinking, if only he helped a little more with the housework, I felt grateful that he cared about me. His words instantly erased my frustrations, and a smile of joy spread across my face. "James, thank you. Can I look forward to the celebration?" I asked. "Of course. We'll discuss it as a family and prepare." "Just wait, Michelle," James replied. Relieved by his words, I looked forward to the celebration preparations. But this happy feeling didn't last long, and soon I was faced with the harsh reality. I accepted James's invitation without suspicion. It seemed that my in-laws had also heard about the talk and were preparing something together. A few weeks later, I was called in by James and my in-laws. Work had calmed down at that time, and I was in good spirits, so it was a perfect occasion for celebration. "Sorry for the sudden call. I have something to talk about." "It's okay, no problem at all. Today, we, as a family, have an important matter to discuss with you, Michelle." "What's the matter?" I thought it was about the celebration, but why make it sound so serious? Wishing they would just talk normally, I decided to listen to what they had to say. "Actually, now that the mortgage repayment is ending, we want you to leave here," they said. "What?" I couldn't help but let out a surprised voice at this unexpected statement. They wanted me to leave the house as soon as the mortgage was paid off? What was I being told? Was it a misunderstanding? Such surprising words made me want to think it was a misunderstanding. I couldn't fully comprehend what James was saying and lost my words, unable to respond to his query. At that moment, I couldn't catch up with my thoughts and was just confused. Seeing me like that, my in-laws couldn't wait for me to understand the situation and began to explain further. "We've sold this house to our eldest son and his wife," my father-in-law informed me. "What?" I exclaimed in shock. My mind was in turmoil, unable to comprehend what was happening. Being suddenly ordered to leave the house, and furthermore, that the house had been passed to James's eldest brother and his wife, was unbelievable. What was the meaning of all I had done for this family? Did this situation signify that my role was over? However, I could not accept such an unfair and unreasonable situation. "Now that we have this wonderful house, your role here is no longer needed. We tolerated you until the mortgage was paid off, but now the house is ours. You are no longer needed," my mother-in-law continued. I had lived in this house with James's family, feeling deep gratitude towards them. Because I felt so grateful, I stayed without saying anything until today. But now, I realized it was all just an act. Even helping my father and me was part of their plan to make me do something for them. Facing this truth, I felt a deep sense of betrayal and disappointment. The sudden estrangement from a family I trusted was an immeasurable mental blow to me. The trust I had built up over the years crumbled in an instant. It was as if everything I had believed in for so long was just an illusion, deeply wounding my heart. They knew I was striving to become a lawyer to clear my father's debts, so they gambled, thinking the investment, though risky, could potentially double in return. It was a scheme to make me buy the house. We expected a significant return if we showed you kindness. Ever since you and James were dating, we thought the investment wouldn't be a waste, she added. When you were happy just for us taking a little care of your father and gave us expensive wine as a way to thank us. We thought you were easy, she continued. It was before my father's business collapsed. My family was quite wealthy until then. James seemed to have been eyeing my family's wealth from the beginning, knowing I was aspiring to be a lawyer. That's why he saw value in his actions up to this point. Unaware, I completely trusted James and his family. How foolish I was. I couldn't believe myself. That's why we devised this plan. We thought if we obligated your father, we might get a big reward, he said. Their confident and unbelievable statements were hard for me to accept. So, it's a great success. We've got a wonderful new house. It's in our name, and once the mortgage is paid off, everything is ours. What we do with our property is none of your business, they declared. Their words were filled with planning and conviction, and I struggled to accept this reality. It took me time to understand that everything had been planned from the beginning. For these 13 years, they had just been quietly waiting for this moment. They never truly loved me or my father. We were just a means to their end. Their plan had been to approach our family from the start, and we fell into their trap without realizing it. Faced with this unbelievable situation, darkness spread in my heart. My emotions sank into deep darkness, as if I was standing on the edge of a cliff. The word despair suited my feelings at that moment. I couldn't understand everything they had done, thought, and executed. So, outsiders should leave this house immediately. You have no place here anymore. Their words inflicted a deeper wound in my heart. Confronted with the fact that I was no longer needed in this house, I was just dumbfounded. This house was once a place of peace, love, and warmth for me, but now all that had crumbled away. A chapter of my life had ended, and a new, lonely journey was about to begin. There's your stuff to pack, so it can't be immediate, James. If you do that, you'll really be in trouble. Let's do it tomorrow. I'll give you until tomorrow to pack your things properly and leave, my mother-in-law declared. This house now belongs to the Anderson family, my father-in-law added. Also, I'll get the divorce settled. There's no point in us being a couple anymore, and I'm tired of your nagging. Make sure you've signed the papers by the time you leave this house tomorrow, James said. The words Anderson family weighed heavily on my heart. It was now clear that I had never been accepted by the Anderson family from the beginning. Was I treated unjustly and made to work like a slave, struggling to balance housework and my job because I wasn't considered family? All my questions merged into one, and I could only muster a bitter smile. I was deceived by your family from the start, I murmured. That's right. Are you stupid? Don't you understand that? James retorted. Hearing his words, I felt something breaking inside me. Looking down, I slowly raised my face and, forcing a smile, gave an unexpected response to my in-laws. Then, I will move out. My heart could no longer find a reason to stay with the Anderson family. All those days were filled with their deceit. My life from now on would be a new path. When I suddenly showed a bright face and decided to leave the house lightly, my in-laws could not hide their surprised expressions. Quite obedient, aren't you? Got something up your sleeve? My mother-in-law asked suspiciously. No plans. Hearing such an incomprehensible story, I felt like my life hit rock bottom. And just like that, my love for your family cooled instantly. I'll pack up my things right away and leave this place. I'll properly sign the divorce papers. I'll have my lawyer contact you later about the division of property. Goodbye, and thank you for everything up to now, I said. Without waiting for my in-laws' reaction, I returned to my room. As I packed my belongings, I held back my tears while planning my next steps. After such terrible treatment, I couldn't just let it end silently. I wouldn't be at peace until they experienced the same pain, suffering, and unfairness I had endured. While packing, I calmly thought of ways to get back at them. I meticulously planned how to inflict the greatest pain on them. Various thoughts raced through my mind as I deeply contemplated my future actions. My anger and disappointment towards the in-laws were indescribable, but I maintained my composure, searching for the best way to resolve the situation. My revenge on them had to be more than just an emotional reaction. They needed to seriously understand the consequences of their actions. My new life began from there. While I was packing, suddenly my phone rang. The moment I saw the caller's name, a strategy formed in my mind. Surely this person will support me, I thought, and, without hesitation, answered the call, revealing the harsh situation I was facing. The caller listened attentively to my story, and then we discussed and promptly acted on a plan for the future. Once I finished packing, I quietly left the house I had lived in for years without a word to James and his family. When I left, I decided to sever all ties with them. So, I deleted their contacts from my phone. Determined not to respond to any communication from them, my decision soon started showing results. The day after I left the house, I received numerous intense calls from my in-laws. I had deleted the numbers, but remembered them due to our long association, which weighed heavily on my mind that morning. They must have realized that I had left the house and understood what had happened. However, I had no intention of responding to their calls anymore. As I looked at my phone, I indulged in a sense of superiority over my decision and smiled lightly. At that moment, the person who provided me a new place to live reassured me, "You don't have to answer the phone at all." I gratefully nodded at his words. I was ready to take the first step towards a new beginning. My life was about to enter a new chapter in a new environment. After the calls from my mother-in-law stopped, James started calling. His calls were like unbearable noise to me then. Unable to tolerate it any longer, I turned off my phone and, without turning it back on, proceeded with canceling the service. This action was a clear statement of ending my relationship with James. 3 months passed, and I had started a new life in a new apartment. Freed from the stress of living with my in-laws, I could focus more on my work. My daily life became more fulfilling, and I enjoyed my life to the fullest, free from past restraints. People around me noticed that I was shining. Post-divorce, my face became brighter with smiles, and my personality turned more cheerful and friendly. This change was recognized by others, and I received many compliments. Though previously oppressed mentally by my relationship with my in-laws, I decided to cherish my relationships with colleagues at work and build good connections. I plan to put more effort into my job and prioritize communication with my coworkers. When I made this resolution, the receptionist at my office appeared on the floor in a panicked state and urgently reported to me, "Miss Cohen, there's a parent and child at the reception looking for you," she said. Cohen was my maiden name, which I still use after the divorce. Hearing her report, I rushed to the reception to understand what was happening. The normally polite and composed receptionist's agitation indicated something unusual was going on. Something significant must have caused her distress. Seeing her worried expression, I wanted to be of support, and a male colleague, sensing her state, offered to accompany me. We headed together to the lobby. Arriving there, my expression changed dramatically when I saw who was there. I found her, Mom, there's Michelle. When I heard that voice, I saw my mother-in-law and James. They were raising their voices inside the office, saying, "Michelle, how could you do this? Cutting off contact is terrible. Do you understand the trouble we're in?" I was stunned by their irrational behavior and couldn't help but question it. Others present couldn't hide their dismay at their actions. Their appearances, worn and filled with anger, were stark after not seeing them for months. Realizing the abnormal situation, other reception staff reported to the upper management, and soon the office manager appeared in the lobby. "Miss Cohen, a meeting room is prepared. How about having a discussion there with your in-laws?" "I'll contact him," the manager suggested calmly. Having already confided everything to the manager, I accepted the suggestion. Feeling uneasy about going alone, I took my colleague with me. He was the lawyer I had hired for the matter with James, so they accepted his presence. I headed to the meeting room, suppressing my confusion and agitation. Despite my turmoil and anxiety about the unknown situation ahead, I was somewhat relieved by the manager's calm handling and resolved to move forward step by step. As I walked to the meeting room, my mother-in-law and James glared at me with anger. Despite their dire situation, they seemed displeased to see me enjoying my work. Their gaze and attitude made their feelings clear. Sitting in front of my in-laws, we exchanged glares, and then the manager entered the meeting room with someone else. "Sorry I'm late." "What? Why are you here?" The person the manager brought was James' brother, my brother-in-law. He stood there, glaring at the two with an angry expression. "There's nothing to say. You guys have really done something ridiculous." My brother-in-law was a former gang leader who used to rule this area in his youth. He now runs his own company, working in construction. His employees affectionately call him boss, and he detests dishonest behavior. After consulting with him about this incident, he was visibly angered. When I lost my place to live, he had taken care of me for several weeks in a women's dormitory. He was already aware of the house situation with my in-laws. Informed about the details, he immediately offered his help. Why didn't he know? When my in-laws told me to leave the house, they said they had sold it to their eldest son and his wife. I found out everything from Susan and confirmed it. "You didn't think you could do such a horrible thing to Michelle and get away with it, did you?" As soon as the name Susan was mentioned, James and his mother showed expressions of astonishment. Susan was his wife and the mastermind behind this incident. As the wife of the eldest son, she had always harbored hostility towards me for some reason. She had been a housewife, following my brother-in-law's wishes up to this point. However, it wasn't my brother-in-law's instruction but her own will. Women were seen as the guardians of the home, and her parents had lived that way, so housekeeping was deemed natural for her. Based on such notions, she seemed to believe that women who went against this belief were not real women. However, when I appeared, how did she view me? My attitude of actively engaging in work for nearly 40 years might have been too dazzling for her. Moreover, Susan was not good at cooking. Even my brother-in-law and father-in-law had asked my mother-in-law to teach her, and I had heard about this from James. On the other hand, I could handle household chores normally. Furthermore, I managed housework better than Susan while juggling my job. She might have been envious of my ability to do everything. Every time Susan met me, she started making snide remarks. She accused me of neglecting household chores or leaving them to my husband, throwing various harsh words at me for decades. However, my brother-in-law always intervened. That might have been another source of dissatisfaction for Susan. My brother-in-law said it was fine for Susan to work, and he helped around the house. Her inaction in this situation was her own choice. It was unfair for her to take out her frustrations on others. When my brother-in-law warned Susan, she began targeting her discontent at me. Susan confessed that she orchestrated the entire plan to take over the house and make me buy it. She instigated you, Mom and Dad, to execute this scheme. You all probably thought you could get your own house and continue pretending to be senile, and I wouldn't be able to complain. Unable to contact my brother-in-law because of Susan, they had their ways to orchestrate the entire scheme. James had also accepted a reward for helping them in this affair, making them all conspirators. The only person who didn't know was my brother-in-law, who would have stopped such foolish actions had he been aware. This situation must have filled him with regret. So that's why everyone behaved so meekly whenever he visited. Whenever my brother-in-law came over, my parents-in-law didn't do anything. They probably understood what the outcome would be if he found out about the situation. The manager and colleagues present watched my in-laws with expressions of astonishment. So, how should we handle this? I have no intention of forgiving even a fraction of the insult I received, let alone the trouble caused to Michelle. But it was Susan's suggestion. That's right. We were just misled by clever words. It wasn't intentional. Not intentional. You say? At James's statement, my patience reached its limit. I stood up, my face filled with anger, and yelled at my mother-in-law and James. How can you say you had no ill intentions after doing such a thing? Do you have any idea how much pain I've been through these 13 years? My suppressed emotions exploded, and I couldn't hold back my tears of anger and frustration. My mother-in-law and James had never seen me cry before. No matter the hardship, I had endured and persevered. Even when my father-in-law was falsely considered senile and acted freely, I never showed any tears and endured everything. In their eyes, I was always a strong woman who never cried. Seeing me raise my voice and cry then must have been shocking for them. Do you realize how grateful I was to you? How much I wanted to repay you? To think that the care for my father was motivated by such ulterior motives. I can't forgive you. I will never forgive you. With those words as a signal, my brother-in-law brought someone into the meeting room, and a man in a black suit entered. He sat opposite us and looked intently at my in-laws. You will have to take responsibility for this. What? Faced with an incomprehensible turn of events, my mother-in-law exclaimed in surprise. This man is my lawyer, hired by brother-in-law. He is a respected attorney in our office, like a mentor to me. We intend to seek compensation for the unfair treatment I've received. What do you mean? It's pointless to dig up the past now. The past is irrelevant now. The lawyer, who had been quietly listening to my in-laws, slightly adjusted his glasses and coolly refuted them. The current evidence and the basis for the future claim of damages make the lawsuit fully feasible, especially since there was no agreement not to claim property at the time of the divorce. In this case, there is no specific time limit for claiming compensation. Furthermore, as he spoke, the lawyer took out an SSD from his pocket, and my in-laws looked confused. What is that? This is the record Michelle has been keeping. Her PC was equipped with a camera for remote meetings, and all your heinous acts have been saved as data. Upon learning this truth, my in-laws' expressions rapidly paled. Michelle mostly worked in the living room, didn't she? Modern laptops often have built-in cameras, and your harassment in the living room has backfired, the lawyer said before pocketing the SSD and calmly staring at my in-laws. The ownership of the house is already in Michelle's name, and your eviction is just a matter of time. We will proceed with legal action promptly, so please prepare the funds. Wait, You're saying it's changed to her name. James reflexively reacted to the lawyer's statement. My brother-in-law raised his voice in response to James's reaction. I asked Michelle to change the ownership to her name. Thanks to you putting it in Susan's name without permission, the change was surprisingly easy. Anything to say about that? My brother-in-law taunted James with a mischievous smile. James, who had never won a fight against his brother since childhood, couldn't argue back, and my mother-in-law also remained silent. I will also properly bill you for all the expenses involved in that transfer. That's only fair, right? After all, it was your wrongful actions. If you don't deal with what you've started, we'll be in trouble too, said my brother-in-law, folding his arms and standing imposingly, throwing those stern words at them. The two were speechless before my brother-in-law's stern demeanor. My brother-in-law had also informed Susan, his wife and the mastermind behind this ordeal, about this. After resolving this matter, he had expressed his intention to divorce her over the phone. I'm really sorry for involving you in this, Michelle. Even though I didn't know, I will support you to the fullest until you are satisfied. Let me know any request you have. It's my family who did this, so I have a responsibility too. If it hadn't been for my brother-in-law's call that day, I might still be suffering. If my brother-in-law hadn't been part of the family and there for me, maybe I wouldn't have been able to recover. I never realized how important it is to have support. Grateful for my brother-in-law's kindness and warmth, I glared at the two and threw decisive words at them. I will never forgive you for using my and my father's feelings and exploiting them for your own benefit. No matter how much you try to compensate, I will not forgive you. If you ever step foot in my office again, I will call the police. From now on, I will leave all responses to my representative. Never appear in front of me again. The manager and my colleagues listened as witnesses until the end, so my in-laws couldn't escape the truth and left the office dejectedly. Soon after, James and his family left the house. The negotiation for compensation was settled by my brother-in-law for $70,000, considering the purchase of the house, the motive behind the marriage, and the mental and physical pain I endured. I really wanted to get more, but after consulting with the lawyer, we concluded that this amount was fair, my brother-in-law said apologetically, and I nodded in gratitude. Considering that the maximum amount for moral harassment is usually around $30,000, this was a significant achievement. For me, it was nothing but gratitude. Fortunately, the house was returned to my possession within a few days. The furniture and appliances were also moved under my brother-in-law's supervision, and everything was successfully recovered. Currently, the house is being used as a rental property. It's too big for me, and since it has good location and barrier-free features, it seemed a waste not to use it. Following my brother-in-law's advice, I started renting it out. Susan is busy with her days working to pay off the debt, following my brother-in-law's decision. She works from morning till night, and my mother-in-law and James are in a similar situation. My father-in-law, unable to work due to his disability, contributes from his pension towards the debt repayment, and they seem to be leading a difficult life. I felt relieved that my brother-in-law is a trustworthy person. Years have passed since then, and I continue my work as a lawyer. Thanks to my brother-in-law, the monthly payments are going smoothly, and it's expected to be paid off by next year. Despite often contemplating ending my life amidst the hardships, I held on to the belief that my efforts would be rewarded someday. That belief has become reality, and I live each day with gratitude.